The criminal escaped to the roof and the girl had to call for backup. Writer Ham was seriously injured. The girl promised the detective that she would be there soon and asked her to be careful. 5 novelists have been killed since last year. All of them were very famous writers of romance novels. There could only be one reason for this. The serial killer simply didn't like endings. Yesterday, the final chapter of the author's historical novel, Ham, The Price of Obsession, was released. Since there were no negative comments about it, the girl let her guard down. But she didn't understand why the criminal had fled to the roof, where he would be trapped anyway. The girl went out onto the roof and tried to detain the criminal. She didn't understand what he was going to do. She hoped he wasn't going to jump. The man waved his hand and threw something out. It was a bloody knife. Important evidence, the girl did not understand why he just threw it to her. She told the criminal that the author Ham was not dead and offered to talk to him. Then reinforcements burst onto the roof. The detective rushed towards the criminal to prevent him from jumping. The man had already begun to fall. The girl managed to grab him by the trouser leg, but unable to restrain herself, she flew down along with the criminal. The girl came to her senses. A butler was standing by her bed. The girl did not understand where she was and did not recognize the man. The butler suggested that she had lost her memory, but the girl didn't understand what he was talking about because she had finally caught that psychopath. The butler told the girl that she was the only daughter of Duke Sylvester. She couldn't believe her ears. The only daughter of Sylvester, the Duke who founded the Kadam Empire. The girl's name was Jimena. She remembered that this was the name of the villain of the novel she was investigating. She really wanted it to be just a dream. The capital is Grantol. Jimena was amazed to see all this. Those accompanying her did not understand why she was so surprised, as if it was her first time there. They couldn't understand if she still had problems with her head. With Jimena was Royce, a knight and her bodyguard, and Marie, her personal servant. Jimena confirmed Royce's words because she recently fell down the stairs and hit her head. The detective remembered the plot of the book in general terms, but she knew nothing at all about Jimena. No matter how hard she tried to remember something, the descriptions from the book were not enough. Jimena approached Mary and offered to buy her whatever she wanted, but Marie refused. Jimena showed Mary the amount of money she had taken, but Marie still insisted that she didn't need anything. Marie asked Jimena to buy something for herself since she hadn't been out in the city for so long. Jimena asked Marie not to exalt her. She didn't want to hear that because Marie helps her so much. After all, without Marie, Jimena still wouldn't understand anything. So today, Jimena wanted to give Marie a little thanks. Jimena said that in general, she is a very modest person, but Marie and Royce didn't agree with this. Jimena corrected herself and said that she tries to live modestly, but today she wants to make an exception. Royce reminded Jimena that he was trying his best to teach her fencing, and Jimena decided to thank him as well. The detective died and woke up in a strange body in an unfamiliar world. But for a while, she wanted to forget all this and enjoy the moment. She considered this to be a real paradise. Royce moved away from the ladies to fetch the carriage. Marie couldn't understand whether Jimena had bought so many gifts just for the servants. Jimena said that she already has a lot of things. Then, not far from them, someone screamed. A woman whose bag was stolen screamed. Jimena immediately rushed after the robber. He quickly turned the corner. She stood there and couldn't understand where he had gone. Jimena realized she had missed him. Then someone behind her asked who she was looking for. The 2 guys didn't understand how the lady could walk alone at night. They called her to follow them and promised to take care of her. Jimena decided that the boys were in cahoots with the thief. She asked to return the bag and promised to forget about it, but the guys just laughed. Soon they were ordered to catch her. Jimena realized that it was foolish to hope for a peaceful outcome in such a dark alley. Jimena kicked the first guy right in the face. The second one couldn't grab her either. The boys got even angrier. Since there was no other choice, they grabbed knives. Then Jimena got scared. But the robber didn't have time to attack. He was stopped. They looked at this man and did not understand who it was. He also asked them to remove the knife if they did not want to die. It was a young, dark-haired guy. Seeing the red color on the guy, the robbers immediately started running. Jimena smiled and thanked the guy. The guy asked her what she was doing there anyway. Himena explained the situation. He was very surprised to hear that Himena wanted to catch the thief. He decided to escort Himena to her companions. Then Himena noticed that Royce was looking for her. She turned to the guy and thanked him again. He stood and thought about Himena asking him to kiss her hand. Himena, looking at the guy's face, decided that she had done something indecent and explained that she was not yet accustomed to etiquette. She called the guy a knight, thanked him, and said goodbye. The guy was surprised by this. He didn't understand whether Himena didn't recognize him. The gym at Sylvester's house. Reyes trained with Himena. He suggested that she admit defeat, but Himena wasn't ready to go for it. Royce reminded Himena that her sword was already knocked out, but Himena, without thinking twice, attacked Royce with her bare hands. Using a couple of techniques, she knocked him to the ground. Himena reminded Royce that a loss meant being thrown out of the arena. Behind Himena, someone was discussing her classes. The two guys stood and talked. They thought that it would be better for Himena to train in techniques that are needed in bed. Himena was outraged that these knights treated her like a complete nobody, but she didn't even have anything to say in response. Himena, the daughter of one of the founders of the Kadam Empire, is obsessed with the respect of the knights and the desire to obtain Killian, a scandalous villain who weaves intrigues and spreads rumors about her affairs. She eventually goes mad in prison and dies. But the girl did not want to repeat this fate and was going to avoid a similar ending. Marie ran up to Himena and said that she urgently needed to tidy herself up. Marquis Thermos himself arrived. Himena remembered who he was. Marie took her by the hand and dragged her to get ready. Himena didn't understand why he came, because this man hates her. This was described in the original. At a reception in honor of the Crown Prince's birthday, Himena noticed Killian. He tried to avoid the meeting, but she rushed after him and stumbled awkwardly, tumbling down head over heels. After this, Himena blamed him for the incident, forcing him to take responsibility. The readers then went crazy and wished death on Himena. She understood that there was nowhere left to run. The girl wanted to sort this out so as not to die a second time. Himena told Marie that she would meet the Marquis like this. Marie didn't understand whether it was really so simple, without preparation and in such a state. She entered the room and immediately said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. The Marquis agreed with Himena. Then he stood up and turned to face her. Himena immediately recognized him as the guy who saved her yesterday. Killian said it was indeed him. Himena didn't expect to see such an attractive guy in front of her. She had only read about him and had never seen his face, so she couldn't recognize him right away. Himena began to invent a reason why she didn't recognize him right away. She said that she has been developing night blindness lately. Killian was surprised, but Himena said that the alley was dark. Himena asked him if he had come because of that incident on the palace stairs. Himena said he had nothing to worry about. Killian didn't understand what she was talking about. Himena believed that Killian did not push her and that she herself had staged this circus. She said again that everything was fine. Killian just shook his head. Killian told Himena that he was glad to hear it. Moreover, both yesterday and today she looks completely healthy. Himena didn't like the expression on his face, although she understood him because he was forced to endure an obsessive obsession with himself. Himena has decided to officially apologize for all instances of rudeness and inappropriate behavior on her part. She apologized and promised not to behave like that again. Killian didn't understand if Himena was serious. Himena told Kyle that she didn't like him anymore and wished him happiness. Himena pointed to Killian's escort and said that he could confirm her words. Himena asked Killian to accept the apology and not to encounter him again. She thanked him for his visit and got ready to leave. But Killian stopped her. He explained that his reputation had been damaged by the incident on the stairs. That's why he wanted Himena to make an official statement. Himena realized that despite all the hostility, he had come personally for this very reason. Himena, leaving the hall, said that she would make an official statement. It seemed to the men that Himena had not just come to her senses, but was completely out of her mind. She looked like a completely different person. This interested Killian. Ducal House of Sylvester. The Duke was shocked that Himena decided to wear a man's suit and go to the Empress's birthday party. He was amazed last time she almost threw out the Marquis who came to visit her. He wanted Himena to take advantage of the opportunity and arrange an engagement with the Marquis. After all, if she had married him, that Order of the Scarlet Moon would have ended up under their control. And this is both enormous wealth and unprecedented power. The Duke believed that it should force the Marquis to take responsibility. But Himena didn't understand whether her father was really suggesting that she blackmail an innocent man into marrying him. He told his daughter that she understood him correctly. Himena asked the Duke if he knew that this was punishable by law as slander, but he did not understand what she was talking about. Himena said that she would not be responsible for herself if he ever tried to push her to commit such a crime again. The Duke did not expect this from his daughter, but Himena would not remain silent, even if it was her father in front of her. The Duke was terrified when his daughter said such things. The celebration began. The ladies discussed the beauty of Killian. There were many topics for discussion, and Killian's assistant felt that people were going too far, but he did not want to interfere. Then Himena entered the hall. She didn't understand why everyone immediately stared at her. Killian approached her and asked how she got there. Himena was surprised that Killian was already here. Himena was glad to see him because she didn't know anyone here. Suddenly, the Marquis kissed Himena's hand, which surprised her, as he had previously hated doing this. Himena removed her hand from Killian. Killian didn't like this. Himena simply shook his hand and said she was glad to meet him. Then the Emperor and Empress, the highest-ranking persons in this country, entered the hall. Himena approached them to greet them personally. The Emperor was glad that Himena was in good health, as she had had an unpleasant incident at the prince's birthday party. The Emperor was most interested in Himena's outfit. He didn't understand whether they had really decided to found a new order of the Blue Moon in Sylvester's house. Killian heard everything. He didn't understand whether the Emperor had drawn Himena into his game to mock him. Killian slew demons, his scarlet aura filling the moonlight, earning him the nickname the Knight of the Scarlet Moon. But the Emperor didn't understand that if the Blue Moon Knight swung his sword, his aura would also turn blue. Killian was outraged. Himena laughed. She told the Emperor that the name would not be Blue Moon, but Blue Mold. Himena said that she has been studying fencing lately, and has gathered friends to train together. And thanks to the Emperor, their order finally had a name. But so far their order had 2 members, Himena and Royce. But for the sake of the Emperor, Himena was ready to give herself entirely. The Emperor noticed that Lady Himena had changed. The Emperor decided to invite the Order of Blue Mold to the upcoming demon hunting tournament. He hoped that by then, Himena would have honed her skills and shown herself in all her glory. Himena decided to return to the celebration. As she passed by Killian, she asked him not to pay attention to the ridicule of narrow-minded people. Killian was surprised. The girls sat and discussed the situation with Himena and Killian. They thought that after the fall, Himena had gone crazy. Himena hid from the prying eyes of the nobles. Then the girls started talking about murder, and Himena came to life. The killer was never found, and this writer's books were highly valued. The girls were sad that they would not know the end of the story. Then Himena ran up and asked if the writer had really been killed. About 5 days ago, a murdered writer was found in the center of the capital. Moreover, they stabbed her to death in broad daylight. It happened in an alley near the book district. There were no witnesses. Himena didn't even think about it. That day she fell with that man, and if she woke up in a novel, then it's quite possible that he did too. Himena approached the man and asked if he was the one who announced the invited nobles. She wondered if there were any guards among the guests. The man replied that the commander of the guard was present, but he had gone somewhere. Soon he was found. Himena approached Mr. Serpentis. She apologized to him and introduced herself. He realized what kind of girl this was in front of him, because there were so many rumors about her. He introduced himself to her and kissed her hand. Eren told Himena that he was responsible for the capital's defense and security. Himena realized that the army and police were united here. Eren asked Himena what brought her to him. Himena asked him to give her some attention. Eren agreed. Himena wanted to take Eren out to the balcony. Then Killian noticed them. He approached Himena and said that they needed to talk. Himena apologized to him and said that she had urgent business to attend to. Therefore, they won't be able to talk now. Killian tried to stop Himena, but he failed. Then a voice came from behind him. The girls discussed the departure of Himena and Aaron. They realized that her relationship with Killian was truly over. The girls decided that her next target was the commander. Coming out onto the balcony, Himena immediately said that she wanted to talk about the murder, but Aaron didn't understand what she was talking about. Himena said that she heard about the writer's murder by chance. Aaron understood what Himena was talking about and said that the killer had not yet been caught. Since the writer was famous, Aaron thought that Himena was simply eager to know how the novel ended. Himena asked which murder it was. Aaron was surprised and said that this was the first time. Himena asked if something similar had happened in other places. Aaron replied that there were no more such cases. Himena asked Aaron what the cause of death was and whether the murder weapon had been found. Aaron, however, believed that he was not obliged to tell her such details. Himena understood this, but for her it was a very important question. Aaron didn't understand anything. Aaron asked Himena why a noble lady should care about the murder of some writer. He didn't understand if this was another one of her eccentric pastimes. Aaron realized that there was nothing important and decided to leave. He had no intention of wasting his time on investigation, which is just another useless amusement of the Duchess. In real life, the girl was also not understood. She tried too hard, although the higher-ups ordered that this matter be hushed up. Himena grabbed Aaron and asked him to repeat his words about some writer. Everyone saw their conflict. Himena couldn't understand whether Aaron really considered human life a toy. She did not understand what difference there could be in the value of life, because everyone is equal. After this, Himena pushed Aaron away. She wanted to find the criminal herself, since Aaron was not going to do it. Himena was determined and asked Aaron not to interfere with her. Then Royce appeared in the crowd. He ran to his mistress. Himena realized that her anger had made her completely lose her guard. After all, if the killer ended up in someone else's body, then he could be right here. But she didn't know how to understand what kind of body he was in. More than a month has passed. Himena has changed, which means that he has too. Then Killian ran up to her. Himena remembered that she had promised him to make a public statement. After all, it was her fault. After this thought, Himena lost consciousness. Killian quickly brought her back to her senses. Himena began to say that the Marquis was not guilty of anything, and that day on the stairs he didn't push her. That day, Himena ran after Killian to talk. It was important, it was about his life. But Killian didn't want to listen to another fabrication. Himena tried to prove to Killian that she was worried about him and loved him, but Killian found it disgusting. Himena was upset. Killian simply left. Then Himena tripped and fell down the stairs. Killian tried to bring her to her senses. Himena didn't fall that day because she stepped on the hem of her dress. She threw herself down the stairs on purpose so that Killian could see it. Soon Himena woke up and Marie was standing in front of her. She gave her some water. Soon Royce entered the room. Himena decided to ask him what happened. Royce was surprised that Himena didn't remember anything. He told how she threw the commander to the floor in the ballroom. Then she completely fainted. All the guests were in shock. Himena was horrified. Instead of a public apology, she created a public scandal. She was sure that her father would remind her of this again, but Marie said that there was no need to worry about it. As soon as he heard about yesterday's reception, he packed his things and left for the country estate. He thought that after this it would be difficult to appear in high society, but Himena was only glad. Royce didn't understand what Himena had done to the commander. Royce believed that the situation needed to be smoothed over, and that he needed to come out looking decent. Himena said she was only going to ask a couple of questions, but Aaron started saying inappropriate things. Still, Royce was shocked that Himena went out there with a man she barely knew. Himena didn't understand what this had to do with it and what Royce meant by the word there. Royce said that as soon as Himena stepped out onto the balcony with Aaron, the guests began whispering. They said that this was a place for secret meetings of lovers. Himena was shocked. She didn't know about it. She began to say that she had no such intentions, but there was simply no other place to talk. Himena couldn't understand why she did that, because if she thought about it, they could have discussed everything on the spot. Himena considered it a disgrace. She knew that Killian had seen it too, but nothing could be changed, so Himena decided to forget about it. She understood that since everyone had seen it, it was clear to everyone that everything was over between her and the Marquis. Himena told Royce to get ready, they had to go, but Royce didn't understand where she was going. Himena said she needed to check something at Grantol's bookstore. Royce didn't understand why Himena decided to go to the capital's bookstore. Himena said that a writer was recently killed nearby. Royce heard about it for the first time. Himena didn't find this surprising, since the writer wasn't particularly famous and didn't belong. Even Marie didn't know anything about it. Himena was told about this by the servants, but among the common people almost no one could read. Therefore, most likely this book was popular among young noblewomen. Besides, in a world where magic exists, the death of one person is not such a significant event. But Himena couldn't leave everything as it was. Himena was curious about who the killer had possessed. She was surprised that he had committed the crime in an unfamiliar world. Meanwhile, Himena and Royce had already arrived at the place. Himena entered the store and said that she needed one book. The seller understood what book was being discussed and said its title, Mr. Knight, Hold On To Me. Royce was scared. He thought these words were addressed to him. Royce didn't understand what this old man was doing and who he took him for. The seller didn't understand Royce. He asked if this was not the book they were looking for, the very one that the murdered writer wrote. Himena said that she wanted this particular book, but the seller replied that it was no longer available. Himena wasn't the first to ask for this book, and most likely the other shops were sold out as well. Himena didn't understand how the book could be so popular. The seller said that it became popular after the author's death, although it was known among noble women even before that. Since the writer died leaving only the first, her husband hastily prepared the second. This book was recently published in a large print run and sold out on the same day. Himena found this suspicious. The seller told her about the maid who came and took all the copies. Himena asked to look for another copy, promising to pay double the price. The seller wasn't particularly willing to look for it at that price, since now they're willing to pay tens of times more for this book. Many noble women had already asked him to put aside a copy if a new edition appeared. He advised Himena to drop by tomorrow. Himena thanked him. She decided to ask him if the writer herself had visited the store before her death. Himena learned that the writer had not gone into his store, but she had been in the one next door. They sold ink and paper there, so writers often go there. At this point, Himena had learned everything she could, and at the same time she decided to find out something about the heroine of this world. She asked about a girl with golden hair and blue eyes, but the seller didn't remember anyone like that. Himena thanked him again and headed for the exit. But then he remembered something. About 2 weeks ago, a girl bought the first volume of this book from them. He couldn't see her face, but it seemed to him that she had golden hair. The main character of the original work was named Inez. She was Himena's rival. She was from the Niger tribe and miraculously survived the war with the Black Dragon. Then her father took her further west. When Inez turned 20, her father died, leaving instructions to bury him in his homeland. So Inez returned, and on the way she helped Killian. He was wounded during an assassination attempt at the tournament, and that's where they met. This autumn, the Emperor invited Blue Mold there. The girl understood that she had possessed an important secondary character. Himena believed that the criminal could have possessed the main character. Then maybe Inez is the killer. Royce didn't understand why Himena was so interested in the murder. Himena didn't know how to answer. She said that she considered the killer a real scumbag and that such a monster should not be allowed to roam the capital. Royce believed that there was a commander to catch the criminal, but Himena believed that Aaron was not up to the task. Himena said she was infuriated by Aaron's statement that there was no need to worry about the death of a writer of low birth. Royce thought Aaron was right. He didn't understand why Himena cared about the death of a low-status noble. Himena didn't understand why Royce didn't care about the safety of the citizens. He was a knight after all. Jimena believed that Royce wanted to tarnish the honor of the Knights of the Blue Mold, but Royce reminded her that he did not want to join her order at all. Jimena thought that in that case he just wanted to run away, walk away and leave her alone. Jimena tripped and almost fell, but someone grabbed her from behind. It was Aaron. He asked Jimena if she was okay. Jimena was surprised. She told Aaron that she was fine. Aaron was glad to hear this. Royce recognized this man. He saw Jimena go out onto the balcony with him yesterday. Aaron didn't understand what the Duchess was doing here. Jimena said that she came to get the paper and that she had to go already. Royce didn't understand why Jimena didn't want to continue the conversation with Aaron. Jimena didn't want to communicate with a commander who treated human life with such disdain. She thought that Aaron thought she was crazy too, but Jimena didn't care. Jimena went into the store and started to learn about the murder. The seller thought they were from the Capitol's guard. Jimena said that this is true. Royce was outraged because it was a lie, but Jimena told him to keep quiet. The seller realized that the killer had not yet been found. She knew that woman well. She was their regular customer. Jimena asked if she had visited them on the day of the murder. The girl said that the woman didn't come as usual. She came just 3 days later at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Having bought the item in a hurry, Jimena wondered if the woman always came alone. Asked if anyone was intimidating her, the woman replied that everything was fine that day and she came alone as always. She couldn't tell whether the woman had been threatened or not because she had always been quiet. The only strange thing was that ever since her book started selling, she'd been using expensive paper, but recently she had switched back to cheap paper. Then someone behind Jimena asked when it started. It was Aaron. He thought it was an important question to catch the killer. Jimena was shocked and left Aaron, but he still followed her. The woman did not understand what was happening. Aaron said he was a law enforcement officer and had arrived with these guys. The woman realized that the commander was standing in front of her. She said that it started 2 weeks ago. She had nothing more to say. Aaron thanked her for the information, after which he leaned towards Jimena and called her to go out. Jimena remained silent, but was dissatisfied. Jimena thought Aaron had a lot of time since he was busy with the death of some writer. Aaron asked Royce and his assistant to leave him and Jimena alone. They obediently walked away. Aaron suggested that Jimena take a short walk. First of all, he wanted to apologize to her. He said he had misunderstood the situation at the time, but Jimena didn't understand what he meant. Aaron admitted that he had jumped to conclusions and decided that Jimena's interest was connected to an unfinished novel. He thought that Jimena was just eager to find out the rest. Aaron thought that Jimena wanted to take advantage of her position and extract information from him. That's why he behaved rudely. Aaron apologized again. Jimena understood what was going on, but she was genuinely interested in knowing the content, to understand whether the killer is really that psychopath. Jimena admitted her mistake. She was too abrupt and needed some explanation first. Aaron said he never believed that human life depended on social status. Jimena was surprised. Jimena wanted to apologize for something else. She said she really didn't know. That balcony is the place for this kind of thing. Aaron believed Jimena. He was sure that hardly anyone would discuss murder in such a place. Jimena stood and looked at Aaron. She didn't understand if he had always been so handsome. He didn't look like Killian at all. Killian resembled a black panther, dangerous and fearsome. And Aaron was like a tamed unicorn. With him, Jimena felt calm. Aaron asked Jimena why this matter was so important to her. Why she wanted to find the killer so much, Jimena didn't know how to explain. She didn't know whether to say that she, like him, had once been a detective who caught criminals, that now the killer she was hunting could turn out to be the culprit of this crime. Jimena said that last year she was on holiday in Dus and heard a story. She heard about a serial killer who kills writers because they are unhappy with the endings of their novels. Jimena said he was so elusive that he hadn't been caught yet. That's why she thought he was involved in this matter. Aaron believed Jimena. In that case, he wanted to send a request to Dusa's law enforcement agencies to clarify the information. Jimena didn't know what to do because Aaron might find out that she made it all up. Dusa is located far away, so the inspection will take some time. During this time, Jimena could have found some evidence. But Aaron still didn't understand anything, because Himena didn't have to personally intervene in this matter. Himena, again, didn't know what to answer. She didn't know how to justify herself. This was going too far. Then Himena thought of something to say. She told Aaron that the trials for joining the Order of the Scarlet Moon would soon take place, and she planned to receive an official knighthood. But it is not only fighting skills that are important to a knight. The main thing is the desire for justice. And also protecting the weak, Aaron understood Himena. Himena decided she had gotten out of it. Aaron asked her if the Order of the Blue Mold would be founded officially. Himena, hearing this name from a stranger, felt ashamed, even though she had come up with it herself. But at the same time, she told Aaron that he was right. Now he understood her motives. Aaron, when he first received the report of this case, thought it was a robbery. That's why he didn't attach much importance to it. But after hearing Himena, he realized that everything was much more complicated. He was glad that he came in person. Now they could clarify the situation and avoid misunderstandings. Himena realized that Aaron wasn't a bad guy after all. As a sign of reconciliation, Himena wanted to shake Aaron's hand. Aaron remembered that he never greeted Himena properly. He kissed her hand. Himena was not used to such a greeting. This seemed strange to her. Aaron asked Himena if she knew where the murder took place. He led her into an alley and showed her the crime scene. The body of the murdered writer was found there. A passing merchant noticed the body and informed the guards, who took it away. The writer was stabbed several times in the left side. No signs of resistance were found. There were no witnesses either. Himena ran her fingers along the ground. There was ink left on her fingers. Aaron said the writer then bought paper and ink. Himena realized that when she was stabbed, the bottle fell out of her hands. But Himena didn't understand why the writer ended up in this alley. This road didn't lead to her house. She thought that someone was following the woman, and she decided to hide. Himena asked Aaron again about the blow to the left side. Himena thought the killer was standing right in front of the woman, but she would have screamed if she had seen a stranger attacking her with a knife. So someone had to hear her scream anyway, but no one heard anything. Himena asked Aaron for the deceased's address. Meanwhile, someone came to the Sylvester estate. He wanted to see Himena. Marie asked the stranger what he wanted. The man said that Himena had been asked to deliver a basket of flowers, and Marie decided to find out who the sender was. The man said the flowers were from the Marquis of Kailian. There was a letter from the Marquis inside, so the man asked that the basket be given to Himena. The Marquis asked for a response from Himena, but Marie told the man that she was not at home. Then the man asked to simply pass the basket and ask Himena to send a reply. Marie didn't understand why the Marquis had changed, because when Himena sought his attention, he was cold. Then another maid called Marie and asked for help. First, she decided to bring the basket into Himena's room. Marie put the letter in her pocket. Meanwhile, Himena was sitting and drinking tea with someone. She apologized to the man for coming unannounced. It was the deceased's husband. He was glad that they came themselves. He was just about to go to the guardhouse. Aaron said they continue to comb the area, but have not found any evidence yet. However, they were actively investigating, and Aaron was confident that they would soon find the killer. Ornio asked them to do everything possible to catch the killer. He decided to tell something, but he didn't know if it would be useful. While sorting through his wife's office, Ornio found an envelope between the pages of a book. Aaron began to read the letter. Someone asked the woman to change the ending of the novel. He wanted the knight to choose the princess's sister. Otherwise, he threatened to kill the woman, who would become his sixth victim. To Himena, this letter reminded her of the notes of that psychopath. In real life, he killed 5 writers. Himena asked the man if his wife had told him anything about this. Ornio said he only remembered this when he found the letter. A few days before her death, the woman told her husband that someone didn't like her affair. She was afraid that this man might harm her. Himena asked if there was anyone suspicious near the mansion. The maid remembered something. When she was returning from the city, she saw a girl in a black cloak near the house. Himena was surprised everything matched. As soon as the maid approached the house, the girl immediately left. The writer also didn't say anything, and nothing else strange happened. Aaron asked if she saw her face. Because of the cloak, the maid could not see the face, but she remembered that the girl was short, and she also had long blonde hair. Himina asked Ornion why his wife had gone to the city then, and he said that she had made a mistake. She was usually very careful, but then she spilled ink on the final chapter. Himena realized that even on the day of the murder, the woman continued to write the novel. Himena said she heard that the final chapter of the novel had already been published. She didn't understand how this was possible if the ending was ruined. The man froze in place. Then he said that, while sorting through things in his office, he found a manuscript with a completed ending. He thought that the damaged manuscript had been rewritten that day, and the ending had not turned out as the author had intended. Himena believed that if she continued printing, she could make a fortune. Himena asked the Baron where he was on the day of the murder. Ornio said that he spent the whole day at home then. Anna confirmed his words. Before leaving, Himena decided to take a look around the writer's office. Aaron asked the man what he did. Ornio said that he used to be involved in trade, but recently retired due to health reasons. Himena and Aaron found themselves in the writer's office. Aaron noticed a book on the table. This was the second volume of the novel. Ornio said that he wanted to show this book to his late wife. Ornio remembered that the threatening note was included in the first volume. Ornio allowed Aaron and Himena to take the book with them. Himena asked who had cleaned the room that day. Ornio said that the cleaning was done by Anna. Himena thanked the man for his cooperation. Thanks to this note, they had an image of the criminal. Aaron promised the man that they would soon tell him the results of the investigation. Ornio hoped that his wife's soul would find peace. Aaron couldn't imagine that the killer would be a woman. He thought the letter was important evidence, but Himena said it wasn't. She said that this note was irrelevant. Aaron didn't understand what she meant. Himena thought that the writer's husband was the killer. Aaron didn't understand where she got that from. He thought that the killer was not his husband, but that killer from Juice. Moreover, he sent a threatening letter. Himena said she was also worried about the girl, but she believed the girl was not involved in the murder. That letter demanded that the ending of the novel be changed so that the knight would choose the princess's sister. The second part of the novel, which described the ending, was in the hands of Himena. She only came out yesterday morning, and the Baroness was killed 6 days ago, before the end of the story. Thus, the killer could not know the ending. Aaron realized, embarrassed to admit, that he had been too focused on the threatening letter. Then, at the crime scene, Himena thought that the killer knew the victim. After all, if a writer who hardly ever left the house needs to be lured to an unfamiliar place, then this explains a lot. 6 days have already passed, but there are still traces of ink on the floor in the office, which means there could have been traces on the killer as well. The Baron said that his wife was a careful person, but in the meantime she spilled the inkwell. Himena thought that the man who always handled the inkwell was careful. It is unlikely that he could have accidentally knocked it over. Himena thought it was strange, especially considering that there were ink stains on the Baron's heel. Aaron was surprised. He realized that the ink had not been spilled on purpose, but he didn't understand how to explain the book's publication then. Only 6 days have passed and the book is already printed. It is impossible to prepare a publication in this amount of time. Himena believed that the Baron might have prepared in advance. He could secretly send manuscripts to the printing house without his wife knowing. Once the novel became a posthumous work by the writer, its ending no longer mattered. And Aaron himself heard that someone bought up the entire second print run of the second part. It was a maid who did this on behalf of a noble lady. Himena thought that this maid was Anna, but Aaron didn't understand why the Baron killed his own wife. Himena noticed that the Baron was shaking violently. When he handed over the threatening letter, she believed that he had been dependent on some kind of drug for a long time. Himena asked Aaron to check the Baron's weapon. Himena told Aaron that she hoped she hadn't interfered with the investigation too much. Himena told Aaron that they should hurry if the Baron was the killer. Important evidence could be destroyed. Aaron did not understand who Duchess Sylvester really was. Himena asked Aaron to let her look at the threatening letter again. Aaron gave Himena a letter. Himena got ready to leave and asked Aaron to take care of himself. But Aaron stopped Himena and asked for her hand. Jimena didn't understand whether it was really necessary to kiss a hand even when saying goodbye. She found this etiquette awkward, but she still let Aaron kiss her hand. Here, Jimena began to think that Aaron was getting carried away, and she began to stop him. Aaron promised to visit Jimena personally once they solved the case. After that, Aaron left. Jimena thought he was a unicorn with a disarming smile. The more she looked at him, the more she liked him. Training grounds of the Order of the Scarlet Moon, Acticos. Killian trained knights. Having finished, he asked his student to continue sparring, changing partners. Killian's assistant asked him not to overdo it. After each training session with Killian, they have more and more wounded. Killian was curious about the messenger who was sent to Carafidon yesterday. He wanted to know the answer. The man said that there was no answer because the Duchess was not at home. He believed that since the Duchess had managed to leave for the city, it meant she had quickly come to her senses. The man thought that Jimena was just feigning weakness to get his attention. But Killian didn't think so, because Jimena even turned pale then. Here Killian remembered that incident at the prince's birthday. Then it seemed to him that he saw his mother. Killian felt ill. Killian regretted that he couldn't reach out to her again. Killian's mother shouted at him to run quickly. But little Killian did not want to leave his mother. He asked her to go with him. A man started to quickly lead Killian away. These were his memories. Killian thought he was overreacting. He thought it might be because he couldn't save the Duchess from falling. That day kept popping up in his memory. He also thought that it was because Jimena was acting completely differently. He wondered if, by attaching importance to random words, he wanted to be drawn into her strange behavior. Killian's assistant didn't understand why he was so eager to meet the Duchess. Jimena acted as if everything was fine with her. He thought they didn't have to worry about her anymore. Moreover, Jimena dated Aaron and even started a fight, so the rumors about her and Killian most likely disappeared. Killian noticed that the Duke himself did not attend the celebration in honor of the Empress's birthday. Although this holiday was one of the most significant days in the palace, Duke Sylvester was always a close friend of the Emperor. But here he didn't come, citing weakness. This seemed strange to Killian. The assistant thought that Killian rejected Jimena only because of her father, who was close to the Emperor. Killian confirmed this. He didn't care about all of Jimena's riches and actions. If he had accepted her advances, the Duke would have immediately begun to use the Emperor to manipulate him. Killian became curious about what would happen, if not the Duke, but the Duchess began to control the duchy. He was also curious if Jimena had really changed. The man didn't understand whether, if this was true, it would speed up their plans. Killian said that's exactly what they need to check. Jimena researched information about Inés Fidelis. She believed that it was she who appeared near the house of the murdered writer, but most likely it was the killer who entered her body. Jimena remembered that besides Inés' family, there were no other characters with hair like that. When the main characters' appearances were the same, it could reduce the character's appeal and even create confusion. Besides, such a cold man as the main character needed a girl who could immediately conquer him. Well, Inés only meets Killian at the autumn monster slaying tournament. Nevertheless, Inés is already walking around the center of the capital. Jimena thought that the murder of the Baron's wife had nothing to do with this story, but Jimena didn't understand why the crimes intersected. Besides, if she finds something, she won't be able to come to the investigator and tell him about it. Jimena was also curious if the criminal knew about her existence. Jimena believed that the criminal knew more about this world than she did. If he had known that Jimena had possessed someone, he would not have needed to reveal his identity. In the real world, the profiler told the girl that the killer probably had injuries associated with obsession, captivity, and in this novel, these were precisely the key words. In the story, Killian and Inés suffer and then meet a terrible fate. The same as the girl before. Jimena thought it was terrible. She was glad that Inés was not an aristocrat. Jimena thought that Inés didn't yet know that because of her, Jimena's image had changed. Jimena had no evidence, only suspicions. Jimena had to be careful because this time her life depended on it. She didn't understand what the criminal's ultimate goal was. Then Jimena noticed the flowers. She thought that Marie had brought them. Then there was a knock on Jimena's door. It was Marie who brought the tea. She let Marie in and invited her to have tea together, but Marie believed that she was not allowed to do that. But Jimena insisted, and she also told Marie that she had only just noticed the flowers. Marie said that the Marquis sent them. Jimena was surprised. She didn't understand why the Marquis sent her flowers. After all, everything is over between them. She thought it was silent pressure because the public explanation was not clear enough. Jimena asked Marie if the Marquis said anything when he gave her the flowers. Marie said that the Marquis did not convey anything. Jimena couldn't understand what this meant. Is this really just gratitude for what was? Marie told Jimena that she hoped she would never go to balls again, especially those where the Marquis is present. Jimena was surprised. Marie noticed that every time she met the Marquis, Jimena fell ill. Marie couldn't look at it anymore. Jimena promised Marie that she wouldn't go there again, especially since she didn't like such evenings. And Jimena had no intention of meeting with the Marquis again. Jimena took a flower from the vase and placed it behind Marie's ear. She thought it suited her very well. Marie began to feel embarrassed. She wanted to confess something to Jimena. She gave her a letter from the Marquis. Jimena didn't understand what it was. Marie told Jimena everything and apologized. Jimena decided to read the letter. Killian wished Jimena a speedy recovery and asked for permission to visit her. Marie realized that Killian wanted to come visit. Marie thought that Killian was just making fun of her and inviting Jimena to the ball. Marie was glad that this was not the case. Marie was about to leave. Jimena asked her to tell Royce that she would be waiting for her at the training ground. Jimena couldn't understand why Killian wanted to visit a girl he wasn't interested in. Killian was handsome, but whenever he spoke, a chill ran down Jimena's spine. She didn't understand why the original Jimena clung to him so desperately. Then Jimena remembered something. The criminal wanted to change the ending of this novel. In the original, Jimena went to prison and Killian married Ines. But if the criminal had possessed the main character, then everything could have gone differently. His main target may be Killian. Recruitment into the knightly order will take place over 3 days. Killian needed a list of knights who would fight the candidates in the finals. Killian also asked me to deliver a letter. His assistant didn't understand whether Killian really wanted to send a flower basket again. Killian was going to keep sending them until he got an answer. He suggested that Killian show up at Jimena's like last time, but Jimena was too wary of Killian. Killian believed that if he came to her again without permission, her hostility would only increase. The assistant understood Killian's intentions, but Jimena seemed strange to him. He thought that her behavior was part of a plan to attract Killian's attention. Killian didn't deny it, so he ordered her family to be secretly monitored. The Sylvester family's training ground. Jimena was losing to Royce. Royce didn't understand what was wrong with Jimena. She couldn't concentrate. There were many thoughts in her head, so she couldn't concentrate. She thought about how the criminal didn't know that, now that she was in Jimena's body, she was no longer possessed by Killian. He understood the development of the plot better than she did. This means he could speed up events and get closer to Killian himself. Even Killian, no matter what he was, wouldn't be able to defend himself if he let his guard down. Here Jimena began to think about what would happen if the main character died. This land could have been left without protection, and the entire continent would have been filled with monsters. In that case, Jimena would have died again. She remembered that before he got here, the criminal jumped off the roof without hesitation. He didn't care about this world or the lives of its inhabitants. Jimena stood up and shouted to Royce that she had no time for fencing today, and that they were all in danger of dying. Royce didn't understand her, and she didn't know how to explain it. Here Royce decided to confess something. He said he was going to try to join the Order of the Scarlet Moon. Jimena was surprised, and Royce said that this was the dream of his whole life. He waited a long time until his 20th birthday to pass the test, and finally he got his chance. Jimena was angry at Royce for leaving her. Royce said that their contract was going to end soon anyway. Jimena didn't understand what would happen to their Order of the Blue Mold, but Royce didn't care. Royce believed that if he passed the test, he would be able to serve alongside the Marquis and learn fencing from him. Jimena decided that she too should join the Order of the Scarlet Moon and stay in Kailiana Castle. Then she would be able to keep an eye on Ines. Jimena managed to persuade Royce with great difficulty. When she suggested that they take the exam together, he resisted. Himena needed to make sure Killian was okay before the tournament, then she was going to go back. Here Himena met Eren. Eren said that the criminal had been caught. As soon as he was caught, Eren immediately rushed to tell Himena. Everything turned out exactly as she thought. The Baron had long since plunged into opium and gambling, losing his entire fortune. But when his wife's books began to sell well, the family's financial situation improved, and the Baron returned to his old ways. All the books he bought in the shops were found. When the Baron was pushed against the wall, he confessed to everything. Anna then covered up all traces, but left a bloody shirt to blackmail the Baron. She feared that he would not pay her. The murder weapon was a dagger found in the ground behind the mansion. Himena was glad that everything was resolved. Eren was grateful to her because without her they would not have solved this case. Eren believed that Himena possessed amazing insight and intuition. Himena was embarrassed. Eren would like to turn to Himena for advice on investigations in the future. Himena was surprised but agreed. Eren thought Himena was worried that she would be a burden. Himena said that she was interested and that he could contact her at any time of the day. Eren thanked Himena. Eren had a strange feeling. It was the first time he had felt something like this. Himena suggested that Eren call her by her first name, as she did him, but Eren couldn't. Then Himena invited Eren to be friends. Eren agreed and called Himena by name. Himena felt the wind change. Eren was surprised. Himena explained that the air here is so fresh that it seems filled with green light. Eren found this comparison beautiful. Eren began to tell what he had once heard from his parents. Before the forest was cursed, turning it into a lair of monsters. The Granelpes continent was considered the most beautiful in the world. They said that back then the forest was called the blessing of the gods. Eren thought it would be great if he and Himena ever saw him together. Himena would have liked to see him too. This world was meant to be saved by Killian, and she was meant to save him. Eren said he was going to publish details of the investigation in the newspaper. Himena asked if he would mention her. Eren wanted to write about Himena, but she began to ask him not to do it. After all, she didn't even catch the criminal, she just made some assumptions. Himena said that there was no need for that. Himena was afraid that this article would expose her identity to a serial killer. Himena told Eren that if her father found out about this, he would forbid her to leave the house. Eren thought that even modesty suited Himena. It seemed absurd to him that such terrible rumors were circulating about such an honest and worthy lady. Eren promised Himena to fulfill her request. Himena was grateful to Eren. Himena was glad she felt like Eren trusted her. Eren asked Himena if he could now visit her and talk to her. Himena didn't mind. Eren asked if he could come tomorrow or the day after. Himena said she would be uncomfortable for the foreseeable future. Himena noticed that Eren was upset. Himena lied that she was going to her father. She couldn't tell Eren that she was going to take the knight's exam. To survive in this world, Himena needed to protect the main character. Himena promised Eren to meet her as soon as she returned. Himena promised to write to him. Eren leaned towards Himena and said he would wait. Eren started to walk away. Himena was in a stupor. She didn't understand what it was. She almost melted from that tone. Today, Himena had to spend the night in an unusual place. Royce still couldn't understand Himena. He didn't understand why she needed a knighthood. It was no higher than the title of a duke's daughter. Royce couldn't understand why she was going through all this trouble. Himena reminded Royce that she had a dream too. She wanted to be officially recognized as a knight. If she passes the selection, she will be able to learn fencing from the Marquis himself, and then she will be able to create a branch of the order on their lands. Royce felt like Himena was lying to him. Royce thought that Himena simply couldn't forget the Marquis. Himena told Royce he was talking nonsense. It seemed to Royce that everything was falling into place logically. He thought that even at that reception, Himena wanted to make Killian jealous. Himena started to prove to Royce that he was wrong, but Royce didn't believe her. Himena didn't want to continue the argument any further. However, true heroes always hid their identity and sacrificed themselves for others. Royce didn't understand why he needed to change his appearance. Himena said that the Marquis remembered how they declared themselves to be Knights of the Blue Mold at the reception. Himena believed that the Marquis would immediately understand that he was her bodyguard. Royce agreed with Himena. Himena made Royce wear a wig and choose a new name. Royce thought it was too flashy. After all, he put on golden hair, and they were found only among members of the imperial family and a very narrow circle of people. Himena reminded Royce that the market preferred blondes. Himena wanted to get into the top 10 by any means necessary, so she decided to use everything that could help them. Himena turned to Royce and asked him if she looked like a guy. Royce felt that Himena's image was that of a son of a noble family who did not listen to his parents. Himena was glad she had dealt with her appearance. Now they needed to come up with names, and she suggested that Royce take the name Rolex. Himena decided to take the name Hermes for herself. Actico's castle. Preparations for the entrance exam were underway and were completed. Kylian was given a report on the changes in the Sylvester house. The Duke went to a country house for treatment, and Himena took over the management of the lands. But there was something else strange. Since taking office, Himena has sharply reduced taxes for residents. She began to actively help the poor, allocating funds for assistance and support. She often organized campaigns across the lands, and people began to admire and respect her. Kylian thought this was preparation for the official succession to the title. He found this strange, since previously Himena had only hosted receptions and flirted with men. But the Duke was greedy and could not give power to his daughter just like that. Himena did not get in touch, did not invite anyone to her place, and did not visit the Duke. The Marquis asked his assistant to keep an eye on her. Knights Tournament, Actico Castle Arena. Himena asked Royce if there were always so many participants. Himena was surprised by the number of people. Royce reminded Himena that he had spoken about this. There were more than 500 people at the tournament. Himena thought that there would be 100 people at most. Himena couldn't believe it and thought that most of them were just extras. The man came out and announced that the test consisted of 4 disciplines: archery, fencing, spearmanship, and hand-to-hand combat. Participants could choose 3 disciplines. Himena realized that the best warriors had gathered here. The winners of the semi-finals were supposed to meet in the final. The man asked the participants to line up for their discipline. Himena didn't expect them to start so quickly. The first stage was archery. Himena was more used to shooting than throwing arrows. Reese wished Himena good luck. Himena wasn't confident in her skills, but she decided to give it a try. She couldn't give up, because then no one would protect the main character. Himena took the bow and began to aim. The presenter gave permission to shoot. Himena fired. She managed to hit the target right in the center. Himena exhaled and the room erupted in cheers. The others thought it was a great shot. Himena was surprised that all these people were rooting for her. Himena remembered that she was once an elite athlete and a detective. Himena picked up her bow again and shouted words of encouragement to the other participants. Shots followed. Himena hit the center again. They attacked Himena for screaming. People wanted to change the game. Himena reminded the boys that if they joined the order, they would have to fight monsters. Therefore, they must have concentration and courage so as not to get lost in any situation. Himena was supported this time too. Evening came and Himena was exhausted. She lay there and asked Royce to massage her shoulders. Royce told Himena that it was not too late to change her mind. After all, she still passed the qualifying round. She did well. Royce offered to let her go home. Himena told Royce that he didn't understand anything. She wanted to give herself for the good of the world. Himena fell asleep right there and then. Royce could see how hard it was for her. He thought she was strange. He wished her good night. Tomorrow was no less a difficult day awaiting them. Morning came. Kylian decided to check how the tests were going. He was interested in the level of candidates this year. The man said there were as many candidates as always, but this year there were especially many outstanding ones. Some even gained immense popularity among the fortress's residents. Kylian wondered what kind of fighters they were this time. Right now there was a hand-to-hand combat competition going on. There were a lot of people. The fighter on the field was small in build and handsome in appearance, so a crowd was flocking to his fights. Then Kylian noticed this fighter. It was Himena. She was defeating the enemy. The girls were delighted with Hermes' appearance. Killian was in a stupor. His assistant asked what was going on. Royce rushed to Jimena. He was glad that they had won again. Killian asked his assistant why the two were in his castle. Killian said they were from the Order of Blue Mold. Jimena and Royce were jumping for joy. Then Royce noticed Killian, who was looking at them with disdain. Royce just smiled at him. Then he turned to Jimena and said that the Marquis had arrived. He didn't know what to do with them because he was looking straight at them. Jimena warned Royce that he would only attract attention if he started looking away and acting nervous. Jimena asked him to look confidently into the Marquis's eyes. They had to act as if they were seeing Killian for the first time. Royce decided to open his eyes and look confidently at Killian. They turned calmly and stared at the Marquis. Killian didn't understand what Jimena was doing here, especially in such a state. She even ignored his message about the visit, saying that she was going to Anatoly. The assistant noticed that Hermes' face was really attractive, and Killian was shocked. The presenter supported his assistant because Hermes was not only handsome, but also strong. Especially in hand-to-hand combat, despite his small body, he repeatedly threw hefty men to the mat. He also had a brother, a Rolex, which was, on the contrary, huge and fast. Killian decided to leave. He thought that talking to them would have to wait until the end of the trials. Until he understood what kind of game they were playing, he didn't want to let Jimena go. The morning of the final match. The finalists were asked to come forward. Jimena walked forward. Here she felt severe pain. Her wrist, which had been injured during yesterday's tryouts, was still sore. He was hit with a wooden sword. The wrist was swollen, and pain was felt with the slightest movement. Royce walked up to Jimena and asked her if she was hurt. Jimena said it was okay. She didn't want Royce to start lecturing her again. Nevertheless, they were both happy to have reached the final. Royce believed that Jimena would overshadow the Marquis, becoming the most famous fighter. Jimena didn't need this. She wanted to find out if the criminal had possessed Inez, and stop him if he hunts Killian. For this, Jimena needed to be close to Killian. The spectators wished Hermes good luck. Jimena was quite popular. She was sure that after the fight, all this fuss would die down. Jimena decided to concentrate. The final fight was not a battle between the participants. Instead, they were faced with a one-on-one battle with the Red Moon Knight. Only fencing was judged. The rules were the same as in the semi-finals. It was forbidden to go beyond the line. If you dropped your weapon or forced your opponent to surrender, the battle was considered over. Losing did not mean elimination. The finalists were judged on all their results. Royce and Jimena wished each other good luck. The Knights of the Scarlet Moon called to stand in front of the named fighters. The presenter began to arrange the fighters. The construction was almost complete. Jimena was the last to enter the line. Here they began to name her opponent. It turned out to be the captain of the order, Killian Thermos. Jimena was horrified. Everyone around was delighted. Jimena didn't understand why she was paired with Killian. Killian told Jimena that he was impressed by her skills. He was glad that they finally met. The host decided to start with a duel between Jimena and Killian. Jimena rushed to him and said that it was unfair because Killian was stronger and they had completely different levels. Killian asked Hermes not to worry. He was ready to accept unfavorable conditions for himself so that everything would be fair. He said he would not move a step from that spot. In addition, he took the sword in his left hand, being right-handed. If Jimena forced Killian outside the circle, then the victory was hers. Jimena didn't understand who he took her for. She was even a little offended, but she accepted his proposals. Jimena asked Killian not to complain if the fight ended earlier than expected. The duel has begun. Jimena made the first strike, which Killian blocked. Killian didn't even move. They fought with the same weapons. But of all the people Jimena had met in the tournament, Killian was incomparable. And it wasn't just about strength. Then Jimena felt pain in her wrist again. Jimena defended herself from Killian's blow. He didn't understand if this was really her entire attack. He suggested that she just give up. Jimena told the Marquis that he was simply jealous of her popularity. Or he just decided to demonstrate who is the boss here. Jimena wanted to take a hit, but something didn't go according to plan. Jimena jumped up and tried to kick Killian, but Killian managed to parry the blow. Jimena was in despair. She thought it was all over. She was crying. Royce tried to calm her down. After all, no one could have imagined that the captain would be put forward as the opponent. He was the strongest knight in this country, and Himena had only been training in fencing for a few months. Himena screamed at Royce that he didn't understand anything, and that this world was now doomed. Himena couldn't calm down, but Royce thought she was exaggerating. Moreover, the decision will be made after calculating all the results. Then someone came up and called Hermes. It was Kaelian's assistant who called Himena into the Marquise's office. Himena was surprised. The weather outside has turned bad. There was thunder and rain, and Himena felt like it was a reflection of her future. The man led Himena to the office. Himena hesitated and asked if it was really necessary to call her right after the fight, and in such weather. The man began to push Himena into the office. Himena stopped in front of the door and said that she needed to get ready. Killian greeted Hermes. He introduced himself to her. Killian said he was impressed by his punch in the fight. Himena said she had her reasons for doing so. Killian took Himena's hand. He began to examine her. He noticed that she had indeed injured her wrist, and she even brought it to this state. It was unbearable to hold the sword. He didn't understand if Himena really wanted to defeat him that much, but in reality, she had no intention of confronting Killian. Himena admitted that she was here to protect him. Killian was surprised. Killian reminded that they are not even connected in any way, so he didn't understand why Himena said she came to protect him. Himena couldn't answer, and Killian thought it was funny. Himena told Killian that he was Grenipis's only hope. He is the last hope of this continent, and he must be protected. He remembered the words that he had to go. His mother told him that he was Grenelpiece's last hope. Killian felt sick again. Himena rushed towards him. She asked if it was because of their fight. Killian said that it was not that. He said that everything was fine. Killian called Himena to him to confess. He didn't understand what she was planning. And suddenly she starts talking such nonsense. Killian called Whale, his assistant. He asked to take the knight to a doctor to cure his wrist. The bones were intact, but they needed to be checked. Himena said that it was not necessary. Himena didn't understand what would happen to her because she kicked Killian. The final list of accepted candidates was announced. Royce asked Himena not to be upset because they did everything they could. Himena was lucky she wasn't arrested because kicking the Marquis was a serious act. Royce had hoped for more. He was one of those who could defeat the Elder Knight. They began to name the accepted knights. Rolex was accepted. Himena thought her plan had failed, but Royce had fulfilled his dream. Himena decided to go pack her things. But then the presenter made a statement about the exclusion this year. Hermes, that is, Himena, was accepted into the reserve. Royce began to be happy for Himena. She didn't believe that she was accepted. Killian came up from behind and said that he had decided to take her into reserve. Although Himena broke the rules and lost the fight, she still clenched her teeth and continued to hold the sword. He appreciated her determination and made an exception, but this did not mean that Hermes was fully accepted into the order. Over the next month, Himena will undergo basic training, and then she had to take another exam to get equal rights with everyone else. The monster slaying tournament was supposed to start in a month. Killian began to leave, telling Himena that they would meet at the recruit meeting. Royce started to approach Himena to congratulate her, but Himena suddenly turned around and called the Marquis. Himena ran up to Killian and started hugging him. He didn't expect this, but Himena thanked him. She thanked him for this chance. Himena promised to do everything possible for him this month. Here Himena felt a strong pain again. She hugged the Marquis tightly. Royce immediately rushed to Himena. Killian felt like he had done something crazy. He didn't understand at all what Himena was thinking, but eventually he was going to figure it out. Himena realized that the order was truly famous and their uniform was impressive. She was also surprised that even an ordinary knight was given a personal room. She was sure that Killian did not recognize her and was glad about it. She thought he wasn't that perceptive, so she wanted to keep an eye on him. Himena's arm is almost healed. During the exam itself, Killian turned out to be a kind person. Now she understood why the original Himena couldn't forget about him until the very end. She thought Killian was really good. She wanted Killian to continue to protect the country. and she herself wanted to make sure that the criminal did not harm him. Then she noticed Killian in the window. Suddenly, Killian heard someone calling him. It was Himina. She asked if he had had lunch. Killian didn't understand why she was here, since it was training time now. Himena said that her arm was not yet healed. She thought it would be better to continue saying that her arm hurt, so that she would have a better chance of observing him. Killian asked Himena how her hand was. She said the swelling had almost gone down, but the pain continued. Killian was still curious about what she was planning. Killian noticed that as soon as Himena saw her, she immediately ran up to her like a puppy. But at the same time, she skips training and spies on him. And while complaining of pain, he constantly writes something down. He thought it might be an order from the emperor, but he dismissed the thought, for the Duke would not send his only daughter in such a ridiculous guise as a spy. Himena asked Killian what his plans were for the day, and he said he was going to the city for a sightseeing tour. Himena asked if she could go with him. Killian decided to let Himena be with him rather than wander around the city on her own. He allowed her to go with her under the pretext of exploring the area. Himena thanked him. She thought that Inez might be somewhere in the city and wanted to check everything out. Himena walked up to the vegetable counter. Whale asked her not to get distracted and to stay close. Killian didn't understand what surprised Himena so much. After all, she was used to going to expensive boutiques. The noble young lady saw an ordinary market and felt as if she had entered another world. The children noticed Killian and began to rejoice. He leaned forward to talk to them. Himena was surprised. There was no such moment in the book. She realized that perhaps Killian was only cold to her. Now he looked like a completely different person. It seemed to her that the Marquis came out this way quite often. The residents were very friendly with him. Whale said that this was natural, since the captain was a completely different kind of person, and not some nobleman who does nothing but boast about his power and line his pockets. He always cared for the inhabitants of his lands as for himself. That is why they sincerely respect him and follow him. Here the children noticed Hermes. They too were amazed by his beauty. The children remembered that this was the guy who had kicked the Marquis at the tournament. They thought Hermes was cool. The boys wanted to be like him and fight the Marquis. Himena was playing with the children. Killian didn't understand what she was doing. Whale, looking at Hermes, thought that he was some kind of flighty aristocrat, but he also got along with children. Killian didn't understand what Himena's true face was. The more he got to know her, the less he understood. By evening, Himena's legs were already tired. She could no longer walk. Killian thought she was too gentle because they had only walked a short distance. He felt that enrolling her in the order was his mistake. Himena asked Killian not to go back on his words. Moreover, she has already become famous in Acticos. If Killian just kicked her out like that, his reputation would suffer. Himena sat and admired the sunset. Killian sat down next to Himena. Killian decided that Himena had already recovered from her injury, and starting tomorrow she could start full-fledged training. Himena laughed, but Killian was in no mood for jokes. Himena said that now his cold words were not at all scary. The Marquis always looked stern and cold-blooded, but Himena had long since realized that he was a kind person at heart. Now Himena knew that Killian was truly understanding and caring. It seemed to her that he was deliberately hiding his true nature from others. After all, he should be someone you can rely on. Killian asked Himena if this was definitely about him. She spoke as if she saw someone else in him. Himena agreed. She could be talking about a man like Killian. Killian was surprised. He didn't understand anything. Himena admitted that when she watches Killian, she remembers that man. He also pretended that he didn't care, but inside he was very kind. Himena felt sorry because she would never see that man again. One day he came to the girl. As he thought, she was scolded. She rushed into battle mindlessly, even though she could have been seriously injured. He ordered her to return and not leave her place. He never spoke directly, but he always instructed her, made sure she ate on time and covered for her. She felt very sorry that she would never see him again. Killian didn't understand why. Himena said he was in another world. Where she lived before, Killian did not understand her. He thought that the man was in heaven and he died. Killian noticed that Himena missed him very much. Himena agreed with him because that man had done a lot for her. Killian asked her if she loved him. Himena said most likely yes, but despite this, she never confessed. If she had known that this would happen, she would have told him everything. Himena stood up and told the Marquise that she had to go. She thanked him for showing her the market. Killian seemed to realize something. Killian asked Himena if that was why she clung to him, because he looks like that person. Morning came. Whale didn't understand why Killian appeared in the office so early. Killian was surprised that Whale was already there. Whaley asked Killian if he hadn't slept all night. Killian said that's how it happened. He couldn't sleep, looked through one thing after another, and then noticed the dawn. Wei was afraid that Killian was not well, but he said that everything was fine. Killian asked if the report on the extraction of magic crystals was ready. Whale said that in the Glaciers Mountains, everything is unchanged. They strictly controlled that only a set amount of crystals were mined. They also put up a protective barrier. Killian thought this was reasonable, because even if the Emperor had aged, his greed had not gone away. The repairs to the fortress walls were almost complete, but they still continued to monitor security. Killian asked how Duke Sylvester was doing. Will said the Duke wasn't there, and they say Himena didn't show up either. He wondered what they were up to, leaving their lands unattended. Killian asked Whale if he was joking, or if he really didn't understand. Whale didn't understand anything. Then Killian heard a noise. Some guy put Himena on his shoulders and ran. This was repeated several more times. Then they were ordered to jump. Then the Marquis approached them. He was angry. Strangers could appear anywhere and at any time, and Himena created this here. Himena didn't understand why Killian wasn't happy. Killian turned to the lieutenant, the very same presenter. He asked since when the gym became a playground. After all, this could completely lose discipline. The lieutenant apologized and said that there was still time before the start of training. Killian said that even so, disorder must not be allowed. Whale reminded that knights can do whatever they want in their free time. Killian asked him what happened to the market inspection report. Himena didn't understand what happened to Killian today. After all, yesterday he looked completely different. Then Killian approached Himena. He said he knew her arm wasn't healed yet. Himena said that this is true. Killian said that since she was using her injury as an excuse, she was already bored. In that case, Killian wanted to give her some work. Killian said that until she was completely healed, she would stay with him and serve him. Himena was surprised. Killian did not accept any objections. He ordered the lieutenant to begin training immediately. He called Himena to follow him. The knights did not understand why the Marquis was so angry and behaved so strangely. A servant came to the Emperor and said that Prince Diego was asking for an audience. The Emperor ordered that he be let in. Diego was already 20 years old. After the death of the second prince, he was born 2 years later, and this was a real joy. He was smart from childhood, not at all like the current Crown Prince Felix. Diego entered the hall. He was worried about the Emperor's health because he worked so hard. The Emperor asked Diego not to worry because he was not that weak yet. The Emperor did not understand what brought Diego to him. He said that he had an important matter that he wanted to discuss with him. This year he turned 20 years old. He wanted to find a life partner and came to consult with the Emperor about it. The Emperor thought that Diego already had a candidate. Diego told his father that he was right. He took a closer look at Lady Jimena Sylvester. The Emperor was shocked. He didn't understand why she was the one. She was pursuing the Marquis, seeking his attention, and there were a lot of scandals around her. Diego understood his father's concerns. But the Sylvester family was the founder of Cadem. Besides, a black cat ran between Jimena and the Marquis, and if the Marquis unites with the House of Sylvester, then he will gain wealth and influence, which means he will become even more arrogant. Diego wanted to prevent the Marquis from gaining strength through a dynastic marriage. Killian and Jimena were in the office at the time. Jimena didn't understand what was happening because the Marquis had brought her to help, but he himself had seated her in the office and hadn't given her any orders. He had been in a bad mood since the morning, so she felt awkward starting a conversation, but for her it was even better. She could calmly watch him up close. Killian had been staring at the same page for an hour now. He didn't know what to do to make it natural. He had never had to give orders to anyone before, and he even refused help. but he couldn't just let Himena go because he himself called her. Himena and Killian decided to start a conversation at the same time, but they couldn't decide who would start first. Himena said that she had never served anyone before, so she didn't know what to do. Killian asked Himena to bring him some tea. Killian had a favorite variety and asked to ask in the kitchen. Himena said she would do it in a jiffy. Killian didn't know when he would stop worrying about her. Himena entered the kitchen and introduced herself, and then the women were delighted with the fictional character Hermes. They were glad to meet. Up close, Hermes seemed even more beautiful to them. The girls realized that the Marquis had taken a liking to Hermes, since he had kept him with him. There were knights who gained popularity in tournaments, but none of them were so close to the Marquis. Himena thought it was strange, and injuries among knights are a common occurrence. She didn't understand why she was being singled out from everyone else. She didn't understand if Killian really loved men. But Himena quickly realized that this was stupid because he had Inez. The girls began to prepare tea for the Marquis. Himena asked them if they had seen a girl with golden hair and blue eyes. But the girls didn't seem to hear anything. They had worked with the Marquis for a long time and knew each other well. They would notice such a girl immediately. The girls began to find out what kind of beauty Hermes was looking for. Himena said that she was just a childhood friend. They lost contact a long time ago, so I thought that she might be here. The girls thought it was his first love. Himena asked the girls to let her know if such a girl appeared. If Inez realized that Himena was looking for her, it could be dangerous. She needed to act more carefully. Soon Himena brought the Marquis tea. He invited her to sit down and have tea together. Himena thanked him and asked if the tea was made from chaga. Killian said that it was one of the local products. It was good for your health. Killian told Himena that he had ordered that new quarters be prepared for her closer to her chambers. From today on, Himena could move there. Himena said that there was no need and she was comfortable as is. Killian said it was because of her wrist, but he really didn't understand how she could be comfortable around other men. Killian said it would make it easier for her to serve him, but Himena couldn't believe it was because of her wrist. Killian thought that even washing herself was inconvenient for Himena now, so he allowed her to use his bathroom. He was ready to go somewhere else when Himena was taking a bath. Himena thought this was too much. Besides, it was the first time he had held a new knight recruit so close, and yet he treats her this way. Himena didn't understand if he really liked Hermes. Himena said she respects everyone's preferences. Killian didn't understand what kind of nonsense Himena was talking about. She asked him to respect the boundaries and said that she was not one of them. Himena stood up and said that it was time for her to pack her things to move to a new room. Himena told Killian that she didn't accept his feelings. After that, she quickly flew out of the office. Killian sat and sorted out the situation. Lately, when he was with her, his thoughts were confused. A forest in the center of the Qatari continent. Himena stumbled and was caught by a man. Killian was amazed at Himena's clumsiness. The man asked Himena to be careful because they came here for protection. Killian asked Himena not to brag and to stay close to him. After all, she can't protect herself yet, but she's going to protect the residents. Himena was instantly angered by Killian's nagging. There were a couple more guys walking behind them. One of them thought it was strange. After all, the captain never let anyone other than the assistant get so close. Himena asked Killian what magical beasts looked like. Killian asked Hermes if he had never seen them. Himena didn't really want to look at them, she was just curious. It was said that the villages here were protected by a barrier of magical stones. Killian said that this was true. The creatures were different, but they were all united by their large size and ferocity. The forest was located in the center of the continent, making it difficult for the knights to protect all the villages around the area around the clock. To protect the inhabitants, Killian installed several barriers made of magical stones. Moreover, he created the shortest route through the forest. But the man said that was not all. Thanks to this path, not only villages became better connected, but states also began to cooperate more actively. The Marquis opened up opportunities for people like them, who made their living on their own. It seemed to Himena that with such merits, even the emperor would find it difficult to treat him without due respect. Here the man found that very chaga mushroom. He looked ugly like a black stone. Himena asked if she could take it out and they allowed her to, but asked her to be careful as the mushroom was firmly in place. Himena began to approach the tree, but they tried to dissuade her. Killian thought she was in danger of damaging her only intact arm, but Himena believed that if she was glad she came here, she should do at least something. It was necessary to tap a little at the base of the mushroom, and then pull with all your might. With some effort, Himena was able to pull out the mushroom, but Himena couldn't take it anymore and flew to the ground. Nothing serious happened. She was caught by Killian. Himena stood up and apologized to him. Killian still didn't like Himena's thoughtless actions. The man asked Himena and the Marquis if they were hurt. Then someone shouted that something strange was happening at the barrier. Dark spots appeared on the barrier. Soon a huge creature broke through the barrier. It was a magical beast. Killian asked Himena to stay behind him. He wanted to deal with him. He asked the others to split up and protect the residents and strengthen the barrier. Himena is confused. She didn't understand whether the Marquis was really going to deal with such a colossus alone. Soon Killian had already grabbed his sword and rushed forward. Himena noticed Killian's red aura. He fought with the beast. He did it skillfully and confidently. The knights collected fragments of magic stones. They used them to restore one large stone. Soon, flashes like lightning appeared on the barrier. The knights rushed to inform Killian that the barrier had been restored. Killian thanked everyone. Now it was safe here again. Kailiana understood that Himena had met a magical creature for the first time and was very scared. And she didn't look her best because she was standing behind her the whole time. He offered her his hand to help her up. He asked Himena if everything was okay with her. Himena said that everything was fine. Killian said it was very good. He decided to finish for today. He ordered to gather all the inhabitants who had scattered through the forest and return to the castle. Himena's heart was still beating wildly. Soon Himena was already relaxing in the bathroom. She hadn't relaxed like this for a long time. All this time she had to get up at dawn and ask Royce to stand guard so she could wash in the communal bath. Previously, the knights invited her to wash with them, and it was awkward for her. She was lucky that Killian called her to him, and she was able to avoid it. And then he just left, citing some important work. Himena didn't understand why he called her. Was it really just to wash up? She was afraid that the Marquis would come in now and declare that he liked men. But Himena believed that this was not true, because in the original he had a girlfriend. But still, she didn't understand much. She didn't understand how he could be so fast. He has a broad back and a hand holding a sword. He impressed her. Himena decided to take advantage of the opportunity and learn fencing. Killian stood and thought about what Himena would do if she was exposed, but he couldn't help but watch her awkward actions. Kailiana didn't understand why he couldn't help but keep an eye on her. After all, he could get involved and then come to his senses. He decided to pull himself together. Then Killian remembered that there was no lock on the door to his bathhouse. Killian immediately rushed into the office. Himena, in the guise of Hermes, was already sitting on the sofa. Killian noticed that she had fallen asleep. He took the paper that was in her hands. This was the drawing of the castle he asked for. Himena was sleeping, unsuspecting, and therefore didn't notice anything. He was sure that she was waiting for him with all her might. Killian was the only one who was afraid of being exposed, and she was acting too carelessly. He didn't understand what to do with this girl. He didn't know how she would react if he revealed her identity and started interrogating her. He remembered that Himena had said that she had come to protect him. He didn't think she was lying to him, but he didn't understand what she meant. Killian sat and petted Himena. He couldn't understand what he was doing at all because he wasn't supposed to do this. He couldn't understand why he was even looking after her. Killian decided to carry her to her room. It seemed to him that she was very tired, but Killian couldn't stop and continued to stroke Himena. As he approached her, she opened her eyes. Killian immediately pulled away from her. Himena was horrified and asked him what he wanted to do. Himena hit Killian with her head. Then she stood up and said that he was the one who did wrong first. She threatened him with a more serious blow if he continued like this. Killian realized that he was now in a very awkward situation. The next day, Himena met with Royce. Royce was worried about Himena because she had encountered a monster yesterday, but everything was fine. Royce was shocked by the news that the lady he had been looking after was now courting the Marquise. Jimena admitted that she herself was worried at first, but during this time she managed to break several teacups and spill ink on an important report. She also managed to pour wine on the Marquis. Jimena said that he felt sorry for her because of the injury. Royce was shocked that even after this, Jimena was still alive. Royce asked Jimena if the Marquis had guessed or if the rumors were true. Jimena had heard nothing about the rumors. Jimena asked Royce to tell her what they were saying. Since Jimena hit Royce, he knew her wrist was healed. Jimena said that she was not completely done and that she still had difficulty holding the sword. Royce began to suspect again that her goal was not chivalry, but something else. Jimena didn't understand what he was talking about. Royce said that they say the Marquis is having an affair with a handsome knight. Jimena thought this was absurd. There was a rumor going around among the knights. Everyone was discussing that the Marquis was rejecting the advances of all noble ladies. And he lived as if love for him, this is an empty word. In fact, he has an interest in men. They said that he was charmed by the handsome knight. Royce couldn't even imagine how Jimena would react to hearing these rumors. He offered to let the Marquis go if she still had feelings for him. Jimena was horrified that the Marquis simply didn't like women. Jimena felt uneasy. Jimena told Royce that she should have been born a man after all. Royce didn't understand why Jimena had such thoughts. Jimena explained that while she was a girl, no one cared about the scandal surrounding her, but as soon as she became a guy, her popularity immediately increased. Even this cold, unapproachable Marquis could not resist Hermes. Jimena was glad that at least she had managed to be born pretty, but it was all a waste of time. Royce told Jimena that she was important to him in any form. He didn't care whether she was Jimena or Hermes. Royce still hoped that Jimena would come to her senses and return home, but Jimena had no intention of giving up her goal. Royce didn't understand what purpose Jimena was talking about, but Jimena couldn't tell about it. Royce thought she had no goals other than being recognized as a knight. Jimena asked Royce to deny everything if he heard anything like that. She let Royce go and promised to join the training soon. Jimena didn't understand that if she had been born a man in her past life, her destiny would have changed, although she would have still become a detective. But if she looked like Hermes, she could be a worldwide star. But now everything had gone too far. Jimena didn't understand what to do next. She thought that if Inez wasn't a criminal at all. In the original, Killian was destined to meet her. Jimena couldn't ruin their relationship. But she didn't understand why Killian began to show interest in men. At this point, Jimena realized something. She thought it might be because no one had ever stood up to him before. He could have been a typical hero from a second-generation chaebol drama. Here the Marquis met Jimena and asked where she was going at such a late hour. Jimena didn't expect to see him. She didn't understand whether he was really waiting for her. She considered him to be not simple, and if she were in the guise of Jimena, she would have immediately explained everything to him. Jimena told the Marquis that he was putting her in an awkward position because people might start to suspect something. She reminded him that she had already spoken about this. She asked him to keep his distance because he was not that special a person to her. Jimena didn't like Killian's reaction. She didn't understand what was wrong with his face or whether her words had really hurt him. Killian suddenly said that he knew that he was not special to her. Jimena was surprised. A completely different person. Jimena didn't understand what he was talking about. Killian told Jimena that she had misunderstood him and that he had no intention of taking someone else's place. He took out the sword and handed it to Jimena. Yesterday, Killian noticed that she was wearing a sword that didn't suit her at all. He ordered a new one so that she would be comfortable. Jimena remembered the drawing that Whale had given him. Killian said that it was he who asked Jimena to get the sword. The sword was just the right length for Jimena. It was much lighter and fit perfectly in his hand. The sword was magnificent. Jimena was delighted. Killian noticed that Jimena's hand was completely healed. Jimena said that and almost let it slip that her arm hadn't hurt for a long time. Now Jimena could start training again. Killian ordered her to return to the parade ground at the appointed time starting tomorrow. Killian said that there was no need to take care of him anymore. Suddenly, Jimena stopped the captain. She wanted to talk to him, but she felt awkward. Whale had already told Killian about the unpleasant rumors. They said that Killian was too protective of Hermes. It's as if she treats him not as an ordinary subordinate, but as a lover. Killian was sure that he was not a special person for Himena, and she was not a special person for him either, but he couldn't stop thinking about her, as if he was expecting something from her. The last day of adaptation training has arrived. Today was not only the end of the adaptation, Himena thought that something was wrong with the Marquis. Today the boys were welcomed into the ranks of the Knights of the Red Moon. The Marquis had avoided her ever since joining the Order. There was also an official initiation ceremony today. Although Himena had asked the Marquis to keep his distance, she didn't like it now. Killian told the Knights that they had done well in their training, but only after passing the final test will they officially become part of the Order. Today they had to reach one point, the middle of Mount Kalis. He wished everyone good luck, and all that was left for Himena to do was carry out the task. She joined the training a week late, but she tried her best, so she wanted to finish with dignity. Looking at the end point, Himena was horrified. They needed to climb a high cliff, and they had to do all this without insurance. This rock was called Murur Suroka, or the Rock of Death. Himena found it creepy, but that's what impressed her. Himena decided to go somewhere else, but she was stopped. Everyone had to climb the rock without exception. Himena considered it madness and deliberate murder. She didn't understand how anyone could climb it at all. The man said that all knights had passed this rock, and if she really trained, she would be able to climb it, but Himena was still trying to escape. She screamed and begged for help. She also had acrophobia. She asked to go home. Royce asked her not to give up, because they were almost at the top. But Himena didn't understand what they were talking about, because the summit was still far away. Royce decided to go down and help Himena, but Himena was not ready to accept his help. Himena believed that she was already doomed and asked Royce to go for both of them. Then someone told Himena that with this attitude she wouldn't get far. It was Killian. She asked her if she really wanted to be listed as dead. Himena wanted the Marquis to forget everything she had said about ignoring him. Now Himena was ready to reach the top at any cost. But she didn't understand why it became so difficult for her to breathe. She thought she had tied the bandages on her chest too tightly. From above, words of encouragement were shouted to Hermes. Himena still had a little bit left. Every centimeter was difficult for her, but soon her hand was already on the edge of the peak. Finally, Himena reached the top of the mountain. The knights shouted words of encouragement to her. They thought she had done well. Himena was glad she made it to the end safe and sound, but something was bothering her. She didn't understand what was happening. She didn't have enough oxygen. She thought it was because of the altitude. Her chest was terribly constricted, and she found it difficult to breathe. The lieutenant announced that all candidates had successfully completed the final test. He also said that nearby there is one of the hidden corners of Glekisk, the hot springs of Lagrim. This gift from the gods was available only to those who could reach the top. Himena still couldn't come to her senses. The lieutenant said that everyone could go there and rest. But then Himena became so ill that she completely lost consciousness. They tried to bring her to her senses. Killian, as soon as he noticed that Himena had fallen, immediately rushed to her. He himself began to try to bring her to consciousness. Himena woke up and was even able to say something to the Marquis. She said that she felt pressure in her chest. Killian immediately ordered the lieutenant to lead all the knights along the route. He said that he could handle Hermes himself, but the lieutenant hesitated. The Marquis became angry and ordered the candidates to be taken away quickly. The lieutenant immediately began to leave and called the other knights to follow him. Killian looked to the side and made sure that the knights had moved away. Killian remembered Himena saying she had trouble breathing. In the mountains there was indeed less air and it was more difficult to breathe, but the Marquis thought that this was not the reason. He slowly began to unbutton Himena's uniform. Unbuttoning his uniform, Killian saw the reason. Himena's chest was bandaged. Killian felt awkward about it, but she had to do it. He asked Himena for forgiveness for this. He then began to remove the bandages from Himena's chest, still asking Himena to forgive him for this tactlessness. Himena didn't wake up soon. By this time she was already in her room. She remembered that the last time she was in Glekia's. Here, in front of her bed, Himena saw Royce. Himena began to ask him about what happened and how she ended up in her room. Royce told her that she had fainted due to suffocation, that she suddenly found it difficult to breathe and lost consciousness, and then the Marquis personally brought her here. Himena vaguely remembered it. As soon as the Marquis brought Himena to the doctor, she felt better and was transferred to these chambers. Himena was horrified that the Marquis showed her to the doctor. After all, the Marquis could find out that she was actually a girl. In addition, Himena felt that the bandage on her chest had become a little looser. Himena smiled at Royce and said that then she should thank the Marquis. Soon Himena was standing in front of Killian's office door. She said she came to express her gratitude. Killian said that it was not worth it, and she could consider that he had already accepted her. Himena said she wanted to ask him one more question. She asked how exactly the doctor examined her. Killian realized that Himena was afraid that she had been exposed and said that the doctor had not examined her. He said that when they returned to the castle, her breathing had already returned to normal, and the doctor simply checked her pulse. Himena was delighted. She got ready to leave and wished the Marquis a pleasant stay. But then she decided to tell him something else. Killian got angry. He didn't understand what else she wanted from him. Himena said it was nothing special, but she wanted to say it. She said that she felt hurt because when he handed her the sword, he didn't even look at her. Himena still believed they needed to keep their distance, but she didn't want there to be any awkwardness between them. She felt happy when she learned that he rushed to save her on the mountain. At this point, Himena finished. Now she was definitely ready to go. During the examination, the doctor said that the pulse was normal and that Hermes simply needed a good night's sleep. He suggested a more thorough examination, but Killian said it wasn't necessary. The doctor then decided to simply prepare the medicine that Himena needed to take after waking up. It wasn't every day that the physician saw a commander personally receiving medicine for some new night recruit. He thought that Killian valued Hermes, but Killian said that was not true. He explained that Hermes simply gets into trouble so often that he is already worried in advance. But the doctor believed that this was precisely a sign that this night was dear to him. Since they were talking about it, Killian decided to find out if such symptoms existed. When you think about a person, your heart starts beating faster. For example, it was somehow arrhythmic, and he easily began to worry and even get anxious. But this made him feel uncomfortable. His gaze simply began to reach out to this person. The doctor asked Killian if he could find out what kind of person he was talking about. Killian became nervous and said that he wasn't talking about himself at all. The doctor asked Killian not to worry, and that this happens to everyone and it is a completely natural reaction. The doctor said that this is called falling in love. The doctor was curious about the man who had turned Killian's head so much, but Killian again began to say that it was not about him. The doctor asked Killian if he had confessed to this man. After all, the more he denies his feelings, the more difficult it will be for him to contain them. Killian didn't understand if he was really in love with Himena. In the past, Himena didn't understand why Killian couldn't accept her feelings. After all, she had everything Killian needed. Wealth, a family line that no one could challenge. Many were ready for a dynastic marriage for this. He had no choice but to accept her. Their hearts had not been compatible from the very beginning. Killian lived for revenge, and Himena was in search of the love she was missing. He believed that if they got married, they would only bring misfortune to each other. That's what he thought, but one day, the atmosphere around Himena changed. Himena told him that she knew that he was actually an understanding and caring person. It was then that Killian suddenly realized what love was and began to be tormented by it. But he didn't know what was going on in the heart of this mysterious lady. She did tell him that he wasn't that special of a person to her. Killian considered himself a real fool. After all, Lady Himena had already revealed her true feelings to him. Meanwhile, at the Duke's mansion in Carafadon, someone was calling for the butler. It was Himena's father. He didn't understand where his daughter had gone. The butler said that he asked all the servants about it. And everyone said that the young lady went to Anatole to see her father, but he didn't even see her. The Duke did not understand where Himena could have gone at such an important moment. She was horrified and did not understand whether his daughter had run away. After all, it has become fashionable among young people to ignore their parents' will and leave home out of a rebellious spirit. The butler thought that this was not true at all. He did not understand why the young lady would run away if the Duke was not even home. The Duke realized that the butler was right. He didn't understand where she could have disappeared to then. The butler had some idea about this. He thought that Jimena still couldn't forget Kylian and went to Acticos to see him. The butler said that after the celebration, the Marquis sent Jimena a gift and a letter, worrying about her health. The Duke was interested in this and asked the butler what Jimena had answered the Marquis. The butler said that the lady said that she would never meet the Marquis again. The Duke ordered that a letter be sent immediately to the Marquis in the name of Jimena. Jimena was glad that she had finally become a Knight of the Red Moon, and now she could keep an eye on Kylian without any hindrance. Then Jimena noticed that the maid was bringing chaga tea to the Marquis. Jimena thought she had never been able to properly thank Kylian, but he was her savior, and she decided to take the tea to the Marquis herself. She told the maid that she was just going to see the Marquis and she was grateful to Jimena. Jimena noticed 2 cups on the tray and realized that Captain Whale was with Kylian. Kylian asked Whale if he had checked the information. Whale said he checked, and the letter said exactly that. Uyel didn't understand whether this was such unexpected news, because it seemed to him that this was a completely natural course of events. Jimena didn't know if she should go in, since they were discussing something serious. Uyel did not understand what the emperor wanted, whether it was for Jimena to marry the prince. Jimena heard everything and was stunned by this news. Kylian thought that all the details needed to be clarified, but according to a letter from the ducal house, Prince Diego proposed to Jimena, and what's more, she accepted it. Then Kylian heard some sounds outside his door. Whale immediately ran out the door to find out what was going on. Whale saw Hermes fall and break a tray with cups and a teapot. Uyel immediately pounced on Hermes and asked what he was doing there, whether he was eavesdropping. He didn't understand who allowed him to spy outside the commander's office. Jimena was confused and tried to prove that she had not been eavesdropping. She started picking up the pieces and said she just brought some tea. She said that she would clean everything up and take it away right now. But Jimena, as luck would have it, cut herself on the shards, and Whale was shocked by her clumsiness. Kylian instantly flew to Jimena and took her wounded hand. Jimena was surprised. She didn't understand what he was doing. Kylian told Jimena that she was bleeding. Kylian asked Whale to bring the first aid kit. Jimena apologized to Kylian for messing up again. Kylian believed that he couldn't take his eyes off Jimena for a second. Jimena apologized to Kylian and said that she didn't mean to eavesdrop on them. Kylian said he believed her. Then for some reason, he handed Jimena a letter, and he said that since she already knew everything, she could look at him. Jimena said it was from Lady Sylvester. Jimena was confused. Kylian understood that in fact this letter was sent to him by the Duke. After all, the real Jimena was now in front of him. Kylian was shocked that the Duke accepted the prince's proposal without even asking his own daughter's opinion. Jimena suddenly stood up and told the Marquis that she needed to go home for a few days. She wanted Kylian to give her a weekend. Jimena was incredibly angry with her father. She didn't understand why he decided that she would marry the prince. She believed that this grandfather had completely lost all fear. She didn't understand what was going on at all, and who this third Prince Diego was. She didn't understand why he appeared so suddenly. She didn't remember him at all, and this meant that he was an insignificant character. Suddenly, Jimena remembered something. When Kylian is accused of assassination, the current crown prince Felix comes under suspicion. Then the emperor decides to eliminate Felix and puts forward a new heir. What provoked the rebellion was that the new heir was precisely the third prince. But Jimena didn't understand why this insignificant character suddenly proposed to her. Jimena thought something was clearly wrong. The plot of the novel does not change completely, and if this continues, she will completely lose control over the future. Jimena decided to think it over. She didn't understand how she was connected to Diego at all. They didn't have a single point of contact. She didn't understand the reason he could have wanted to increase his strength, or use the finances and army of Jimena's father. In this way, he could overthrow the crown prince and seize the throne. Felix was not very smart. Even Emperor Genos was dissatisfied with him. She had just recently given up on Killian and hadn't attracted a single suitor in all that time, making her a perfect fit for his plan. If this plan worked, the novel could change beyond recognition. Then Royce entered the office and said that he had heard something from the Marquise. He heard that Jimena asked for leave because her parents suddenly fell ill. Jimena said that they were currently in an emergency. She told Royce that Prince Diego had proposed to her. Royce was stupefied. He couldn't understand whether the prince really liked men. Jimena said that he proposed to her as a lady, as a noble person. Royce was shocked. He didn't understand why Diego chose her. Royce agreed that this was indeed an emergency, because if her engagement to the knight was decided, then she would have to leave the order. Jimena said that's exactly the problem. If she becomes part of the royal family, their house will be hostile to Killian, and in that case, war cannot be avoided. Royce asked Jimena what she was going to do. Jimena said that she was going to go to her father and smash everything to hell there. Jimena said that none of them would live. Jimena asked Royce what he was going to do. Royce said that the commander himself ordered him to take leave because Hermes is his brother. So Royce was going to go with Jimena. Jimena was happy. Killian stood and watched the knights training. Whale asked him if he really thought it was a good idea. Whaley talked about the Hermes and Rolex vacation. This story about sick parents seemed like just an excuse to him. Killian asked Whale how he could be sure of this. Killian said that their parents are with them from birth, and it is only when they are gone that they realize the void they leave behind. Whale noticed that Killian was upset by his words and apologized to him. He understood that the commander knew better than anyone what kind of pain it was. With this, Whale reminded Killian of his goal, and that it's time to pull myself together. The Duke waited for a response from Killian, but none came. The Duke found this strange. He was waiting for some kind of reaction, and Jimena was nowhere to be seen. The butler told the Duke that he need not worry about his mistress. He told the Duke that Jimena had just arrived at the estate. The Duke argued with Jimena. He said that this was the will of the head of the house of Sylvester. Jimena didn't understand if he was serious. After all, he had recently told her that he wanted to marry her off to the Marquis, but now his plans had suddenly changed. Jimena didn't understand whether power and wealth weren't enough for him. The Duke reminded Jimena that she herself had rejected the Marquis and scared away the other suitors. Now she had been honored and should have been happy, but Jimena didn't think so. The Duke did not understand what Jimena was going to do, since it was time for her to get married, but Jimena reminded him that she was only 23 years old. The Duke did not understand how he could raise such a daughter. After all she knew how to do was snap back at her father. The father reminded Jimena that she had separated from her mother early, and he had pitied and cherished her. Jimena approached her father and asked him not to cry. She understood his efforts. She asked if it would be better for him if he forcibly married off his only daughter. The Duke believed that Jimena could say thank you later, and it could have been the single best decision in her life. Prince Diego was handsome, intelligent, and virtuous. The whole capital talked about it, and so many beauties tried to get him. Jimena suddenly asked why he proposed to her then. The Duke said that Diego might want to get ahead of Crown Prince Felix, and the union with their family was the first step. Jimena asked what the prince would do if she refused the offer. The Duke said that this would put him in a very difficult position. After all, he had already given his consent, and if everything was cancelled, the prince would be hurt and the emperor would be angry, and soon they will begin to put pressure on the Sylvester family. The Duke believed that the best option would be for the prince to refuse the wedding. Jimena realized that she had to make the prince refuse the wedding himself. The Duke was shocked. He asked Jimena to return to her place immediately. Jimena called Royce and Marie and asked them to prepare the crew. She wanted to speak with Prince Diego personally. The doctor was carrying some boxes. Here he met Whale, who reminded the doctor that in such situations, he asked him to turn to the knights. The doctor said that it was nothing and that everyone was busy, but Whale decided to help the doctor. After all, he supported them as a doctor and he shouldn't have taken such risks over trifles. The doctor asked Whale what brought him to him. Whale said that Killian had been sleeping poorly lately and looked exhausted, so Whale decided to come get some medicine. Whale didn't know the reason. He thought he still had a lot to learn. The doctor said he could make a potion to help you sleep, but he didn't think it was a problem that could be solved with medication. The doctor asked Whaley if he still didn't understand anything. The doctor told Whale that their commander was in love. Uyil was shocked by this news. He hadn't even thought about it. He didn't understand who Killian could be in love with because he personally accompanied him to all social events. And he would be the first to know if Killian liked someone. The doctor said that he did not ask anything since it was the commander's personal business. But the object of his feelings may not be a girl. Well didn't understand if all the rumors were true. Imperial Palace. Himena was already on the threshold of the palace. The maid met Himena. Diego agreed to receive her, and the maid offered to accompany her. Himena turned to Royce and Marie and told them that they knew what to do. Diego was sitting and reading some book. He was informed that Mrs. Himena had arrived. Himena entered the hall. Diego said that he did not expect her to come herself. He extended his hand to her and said he was glad to meet her. Himena greeted Diego. She didn't want to let him use her in his plans. Diego said that she did not have to observe these formalities with him, since they would soon be engaged. Diego pointed to a chair for Himena and asked her to sit down. He thanked her for coming to him early. Even though he proposed to her, today was the first time they spent time together. Himena said she was surprised and curious about what he liked about her. Diego realized that Himena was much calmer than the rumors suggested, and her appearance up close was quite pleasant. Diego said that even though they didn't spend time together, there was always a place in his heart for her. Although her feelings had been directed towards another for a long time and he could only silently watch from afar, but finally fate gave him a chance. Himena Diego seemed cute, but she didn't have time for him now. She told the prince that she was pleased to hear these words. Himena stood up and told the prince that, if he would allow her, she would like to offer him something. Since she came, she wanted to spend this day with the prince. And to get to know each other better, Himena wanted Diego to think that she was a man-eater. Diego said he would be happy about it, but Himena wanted to turn it to her advantage. Himena asked Diego if he wanted to chat with her, or go even further. Himena said she wanted to spend time with him alone in a more private and special way. Himena wanted to force Diego to break off the engagement by any means necessary. Marie suddenly burst into tears and the palace maids came running to her. Marie said that she was crying because she felt sorry for the prince. After all, such a noble, refined man suddenly found himself engaged to their terrible mistress. The maids couldn't understand how Marie could say such things about her mistress. Marie said that she could not gossip about her mistress. After all, even if the rumors turn out to be true, if this reaches the emperor, the engagement may be broken off. Soon the servants were convinced that Himena had beheaded the guard because of a single bee. Royce said that he was already her 5th bodyguard and that he was chosen by lot. Men had only heard about Himena about her love for men, but they only learned about such cruelty. Royce approached the man and said that it was not over yet. Royce said that Himena became interested in fencing and even organized an order, and she created it only for the purpose of destroying everyone who dared to defeat her during training. The men were shocked that Himena used human lives for fun. Royce was both pleased and shocked that the men believed it. Now all that remained was to wait for the moment when the prince would completely cool off towards Himena. Diego thought Himena was in a hurry, but she couldn't understand why the prince didn't want to know what the adults were doing. Diego was completely shocked by Himena's intentions. Himena reminded Diego that she was 3 years older than him. This meant that, as someone more experienced, she had to take everything under her wing. The prince felt awkward talking about this, but this is exactly what Himena needed. She asked him to simply obey her, and then he will be able to experience sensations that he had never even dreamed of before. Himena asked him not to try to hold back his screams. Suddenly, Himena took out 2 small daggers. Diego didn't understand what she was doing since they had agreed on something else, but Himena reminded him that she wanted to introduce him to adult fun. Diego was horrified. This was not at all what he thought. Diego began to struggle and try to untangle the ropes. Himena said his face would hurt if he moved. Himena decided to start. Diego was horrified. He begged Himena to stop. Then one of the maids heard Diego's screams. She immediately burst into the hall to find out what was going on. Himena relaxed and told the prince that it was interesting. She said goodbye to the prince and said that they would meet again. Himena thought that next time he would say he was abandoning the engagement. She thought that soon he himself would hate her to the depths of his soul. Himena, Royce, and Marie decided to raise their glasses to the successful completion of the operation. Himena was sorry that Marie and Royce did not see the prince's face at that moment. They were sure that rumors would spread throughout the palace by tomorrow. But Royce still thought that throwing a knife at the prince was too much. But Himena believed that he wouldn't dare tell anyone about it. Otherwise, Himena might now never get married at all. Marie asked the lady if she wanted to get married at all. Himena said that not right now for sure. Royce asked why she rejected the prince, because it was status, it was the best marriage. Himena said that she wants to marry for love. Suddenly, Killian popped into her head. She didn't understand why she suddenly remembered him. Royce and Marie were surprised that Himena wanted to marry the man she loved. Himena didn't know how she could marry some boy she barely knew. Himena decided to think about everything later, but now she offered them a drink to their liking. Diego walked down the corridor. He was met by the first prince, Felix Cadem. He did not understand where Diego was rushing to in such a hurry, but he replied that the emperor had called him. Felix believed that the emperor was calling Diego to him because of his wedding with Lady Sylvester. Felix sympathized with Diego because he chose such a wild bride. Felix believed that in order to get the Sylvester family, something had to be sacrificed. He was very interested in what Diego's marriage would be like if he traded it for power. Felix asked his brother to tell him later what it was like to live with such a wife. Diego's mother was angry. She was sure that Diego had heard about the rumors in the palace. She did not want to give her consent to this marriage under any circumstances. She didn't want him to bring such an immoral girl into the family. The empress asked her son to immediately withdraw the proposal. She wanted to find him a bride from another family. The emperor asked his wife to calm down and let Diego speak. The emperor wanted to know what the prince himself thought about this. Diego said that rumors about Himena have been circulating for a long time and he has heard them many times. He admitted that he had acted hastily, but he could not just cancel the offer based on rumors alone. The empress was furious, but the emperor asked his son what he wanted. Diego said that Himena's audacity also took him aback. He thought it was because he had always been surrounded only by quiet and obedient young ladies, so he wanted to tame something more complex himself. He wanted Himena to regret daring to humiliate him. The lists of knights participating in the monster-slaying tournament were ready. Whale handed them to Killian. Killian studied them and found Hermes there. He thought it was too early to add him, since he hadn't even received the title, but Whale believed that Hermes was already worthy of the title. Killian said that it was still too dangerous, because last time Hermes almost lost consciousness when he saw the magical beast. Whale believed that if Hermes accompanied Killian, everything would go well. The tournament lasts 10 days, and they will be outside of Acticos the entire time. Whale believed that Hermes could become a real source of inspiration for the entire squad. Whale thought it would be for the best, but Killian was doubtful. After all, Hermes might not return from there. Whale noticed Killian's reaction to this. He couldn't believe that all the rumors were true. Whale couldn't believe that he was next to Killian and didn't even suspect who his heart really lay with. And one could have guessed it back when Killian began giving Hermes personal assignments. Whale asked Killian not to worry and said that if Hermes was delayed, he would bring him himself. Killian suggested that Whale think about Hermes later and asked him to leave him alone. Killian sat and wondered if Himena would return. He took out that letter again. Killian, judging by Himena's surprise, realized that she knew nothing about it. Although her opinion was not asked, from the ducal family's point of view, this was an ideal marriage and they could not refuse it. He thought that the lady herself could not miss the chance to become the prince's wife. And if that was the case, then Himena might not have returned to him in the end. He could not understand why she had come to him then. He entered her room and noticed that it was in disarray, which meant that Himena had left in a hurry, as if in a panic. He found some piece of paper on the letter. He became curious about what it was and decided to read the inscriptions. This was the observation journal of Marquis Killian. Killian realized that Himena had been recording while she was supposedly following him. There, absolutely everything about him was noted down day by day. Killian knew that the Duke had enough money to hire a good spy. Killian didn't understand what Jimena wanted to know, and whether she had really gone to all this lengths to supposedly protect him, but he didn't understand who she was going to protect him from. Jimena wrote that nothing suspicious had happened around Killian yet, but she couldn't relax after the inspection in the village. It seemed to her that she and Killian had become a little closer. Jimena was glad that Killian still had no idea she was following him, and she thought that he didn't even suspect that she was Jimena. In her eyes, he turned out to be much more naive. Killian simply didn't understand how Jimena didn't notice that he was just pretending not to see anything. Jimena also wrote that during this time she was able to see another side of Killian. She felt that he truly cared about his subordinates and the villagers. Although he pretended to be a cold and reserved man, he seemed to Jimena to be a person with a kind and warm heart. Now Jimena understood Royce's words about the dream of every night being to join the Order of the Scarlet Moon. Jimena thought that Killian was in love with her devilish charm. Now she understood why Jimena was so madly in love with him, but still, the two were not destined to be together. She came here to protect him, and not to seduce him. Jimena wondered what kind of face Killian would make if he found out who she was. He could turn away from her again as he had done on the stairs in the palace. It was quite possible, because Killian hated Jimena, and yet Killian also regretted it. If he hadn't been so cold to Jimena back then, she wouldn't have been so wounded. That was all. Jimena's notes ended with a sentence where Jimena hoped the criminal wasn't that girl. She could leave calmly only when she was sure that the Marquis was safe. Killian realized that someone wanted to harm him and that this person was next to him, but he didn't understand who this criminal was that Jimena was looking for, pretending to be a man. Who is he that Jimena is willing to risk her own life for? And also, Killian noticed that some expressions in her notes said that she was not her. It was as if Jimena had a divided personality of her own. He remembered her words that she sincerely loved him. First of all, Killian wanted to apologize to her for that day, but he didn't know how to do it, how to ask for forgiveness and convey it to her. Jimena finally met Aaron after a long time. He asked her how she was doing. Jimena noticed that Aaron seemed a bit gloomy today. She felt like he wasn't in a very good mood. Jimena asked how he found out about her arrival. Aaron said that he heard rumors in the capital. He said that he had heard that Prince Diego was going to marry her. Jimena realized that these rumors had already spread throughout the capital. Jimena said that this was not true and that she and the prince were not even engaged. Jimena was sure that the offer would soon be rescinded. Aaron was confused. He didn't understand what this meant. Jimena said that things were not that simple, and she thought that there was already real chaos in the palace. Jimena suggested that Aaron take a stroll around the palace, like before. Aaron asked Jimena how the Duke was. He thought that Jimena had been with him all this time and was looking after him. Jimena told Aaron that the Duke was feeling better, but soon, because of her, he was again bedridden with headaches, all because she refused to marry Prince Diego. Aaron was surprised. He didn't understand why Jimena refused, but she said that the reason was simple. After all, she doesn't even love the prince, but she could not marry without love. Jimena told Aaron that the prince was not even any cuter than him. Aaron understood that appearance was important, but being part of the imperial family was a rare opportunity for an aristocrat. Many used all sorts of connections and methods to achieve this. After all, if Jimena becomes a member of the dynasty, the ducal house will only strengthen its influence. Jimena told Aaron that he might not be able to understand her, but she didn't understand whether having all this would necessarily make a person happy. If she marries a prince, she will have to live as a recluse in the palace all her life. But Jimena didn't want such a life. She would have found herself in a cage, chained to orders and rules. Before arriving here, Jimena lived by the words and expectations of others, but here she didn't want the same. Jimena realized that this could be outrageous for the law enforcement officers and told Aaron that she knew he was talking nonsense. But Aaron didn't think so. He asked Jimena how her conversation with the prince went and whether she had settled the issue. Jimena was surprised because Aaron became happy. Aaron asked Jimena if she had called off the engagement. Jimena suddenly asked Aaron if he still considered her his friend. Aaron didn't understand why it was necessary to deliberately spread such scandalous rumors. Himena said that Aaron himself understood this, because if there were reasons to reject the offer, the Duke would find himself in a difficult position. Himena realized that she had indeed started the most ridiculous and insane rumors. Himena said that now she had ruined not only her relationship with the royal family, but also any chance of getting married. Aaron asked her not to say that. For him, she was incredibly beautiful, kind, and a sensitive soul. He believed that there would definitely be someone who would truly fall in love with Himena. Himena was pleased and thanked Aaron for such words. Aaron even encouraged her a little. Himena asked Aaron what brought him to her today. Aaron remembered and told Himena that he came to show her something. He started looking for something, but couldn't find it. Himena approached the table and asked Aaron if he really left it there. Aaron was sure of it. Aaron said he read it while he was waiting for her and then put it right on the table. Then Marie came up to them and asked what had happened. Himena asked Marie if she had seen a book there. Himena took out a book and asked if this was what they were talking about. Marie was tidying up the living room and saw it on the table. It was that very book. Marie gave the book back and decided to go make some tea. Himena began to examine the book titled Stop This Lady's Obsession. Himena thought the name was funny. After reading a little from the book, Himena was surprised. Aaron said that this book was recently sent to him by an anonymous person, and he had only read the beginning. The main character of the novel was Chimerona. She fell in love with the main character Kyrian at first sight at the ball. Himena couldn't believe it. Aaron thought Himena had figured it out. It is most likely that she and Marky Killian became the prototypes for the heroes. Himena was shocked. She started to examine the book and something fell out of it. Aaron said that this was the first time he had seen this note. There's someone asked to change the character of Chimerona. Make her not a villain, but a kind real heroine. Otherwise the author would face punishment. She could have become the sixth true author to die by his hand. Diego was talking to a subordinate. He asked him to gather information about the Duchess. Diego was sure that there were probably many who had had indecent relationships with Himena. Diego was curious about who Himena was secretly dating now, but the man didn't find anything like that. The man said that at the moment, Himena does not have any man. Diego didn't believe it. The man said that he learned everything from the servants and soldiers of the Duke's house. Himena has been avoiding social events lately and focusing on her training as an heiress. The servants spoke of her with great warmth as a kind and attentive mistress. But there was one very strange moment. Everyone said that the Duchess had changed so much after that very incident when she fell down the stairs. And there was another oddity regarding the source of the recent scandal that spread through high society. The source was someone from the imperial palace itself. Diego didn't understand whether someone from the palace had started these rumors. The man said that, based on the investigation, it was the knight and Himena's maid who arrived with the mistress. And perhaps the Duchess was the one who started these rumors. But Diego didn't think that was the case, because Himena had no reason to refuse him marriage. He thought that if Himena had wanted to refuse, the Duke would have hinted about it in advance. Diego thought that Himena wouldn't have done all this just to get out of the engagement. Diego realized that if the Duke had announced his intention to refuse, the Emperor would have been furious. Diego realized that Himena did this on purpose to refuse his engagement. The man said that recently a single man had begun appearing at the Duke's estate. Diego asked the knight who this man was. He said that it was the commander-in-chief of the city guard, Aaron Serpentis. The man said that he was quite handsome, but Diego said that this was nonsense and that Aaron was not handsome at all. And on the contrary, he is a handsome man here. Moreover, such a person was not his equal, either in status or in appearance. But the fact remained that Himena did not accept him, and this offended Diego. Diego didn't understand what the problem was. After all this time they were saying that Himena was literally obsessed with Marquis Killian Thermos. Diego didn't understand what Killian had that he didn't. Here Diego thought that Himena's taste might simply be a bit rough and macho. Here Aaron finally waited for Himena. He was shocked by her outfit. Himena came out as a guy and told Aaron that today he could call her Hermes. Aaron accepted this, but decided to ask Himena why she came out looking like that. Jimena said that if she had come in the guise of the heroine of her own novel, it was unlikely that the author would have agreed to accept her. So Jimena asked Aaron to introduce her as his assistant. Aaron didn't argue with Jimena and simply accepted it as it was. Aaron and Jimena thought the author was living in luxury. Aaron didn't know much about the subject, but it was said that the man was quite famous. He even seemed to have several major successful works. Then a man came out to them and asked them to follow him. The author was waiting for them in his office. Jimena looked around. It was clear that the things in the estate were expensive. Jimena didn't understand whether this was how famous writers lived in this world. She remembered how their writer Ham was always suffering. Either she had no ideas or the deadlines were tight. This made her a little angry because this writer got rich selling the story about her and Kylian. The man knocked on Mr. Lopez's office door and said that guests had arrived. The man came out of the office and said he was pleased to meet you. Jimena confirmed that this writer was indeed a man. Aaron introduced himself to the man, saying that he was an inspector from the capital's guard. He introduced Jimena, as she wanted, as his assistant Hermes. Lopez thought it was unfair that such handsome men were working in difficult service, guarding the capital. He believed that it was not they who should protect the city, but the city who should protect them. Jimena suddenly noticed Lopez's hand and was very surprised. Aaron asked Lopez if they could talk alone. Lopez apologized and invited the boys into the office, asking the servant to bring tea. Lopez realized they had come because of the threatening letter. Aaron asked Lopez when and how he received the note. Lopez said it happened about 10 days after his first novel went on sale. He sent the maid to the shop to get some paper, and when she returned, there was this note in the basket. Jimena realized that someone had planted her and asked Lopez to let them talk to the maid. She thought Lopez was very scared because of the letter, but Lopez was not that scared. He thought that this wasn't even a childish prank, but simply some kind of absurdity. At first he wanted to ignore it, but then he suddenly remembered the recent murder in the book district. But Lopez knew that the killer then turned out to be the writer's husband himself. He generally tried not to miss a single issue of the official bulletin. That's when he remembered this case, and just in case, he decided to contact the inspector. Aaron said that's how it all started. Jimena asked Lopez if he had noticed anyone strange lately. Maybe someone wandering around the mansion, or maybe someone tried to approach him under a false name. Or maybe someone had a score to settle with him, Lopez thought. Lopez said one person does come to mind. He said it was Lady Jimena Sylvester. Jimena was perplexed. Lopez told Hermes that his reaction was understandable. After all, everyone who read his novel immediately saw Kylian and the Duchess before their eyes. Lopez believed he was a genius of his time, because he was writing a novel in real time about the most scandalous couple in high society. Jimena asked Lopez what the suspicions against the Duchess of Sylvester had to do with it. Lopez said that in his book he described all of her antics without embellishment, honestly and directly. He would have heard a lot about Jimena. It was said that she had plotted for Thermos. Causing pain to those around her, weaving intrigues, he considered her a real villain. All readers of this novel hated Jimena. They wanted to see his heroine suffer and expected a fair retribution. Lopez wouldn't be surprised to learn that Lady Sylvester herself is furious and trying to sabotage the plot of his book. Aaron suddenly cried out to Lopez that these were just his guesses, and whether he believes in them or not, the fact remains a fact. The person sending the letters already knows where the author lives, who works for him, and even knows his schedule. Jimena told Lopez that from now on he was not allowed to appear anywhere without protection. She was sure that the criminal knew about Lopez's roots and was planning the crime. Therefore, he should take precautions to avoid big trouble. She asked Lopez to inform them of even the slightest clue or any suspicious moment. Lopez recalled that his maid had encountered a man in a fabric store that day. Because of this, she dropped the basket, and the man helped her pick it up. Jimena asked Lopez if the maid had told her what the man looked like. Lopez said it was a tall man in a black cloak with a large sword on his belt. Jimena thought the main character of this novel did not fit this description. Aaron asked how Jimena was feeling. He believed that since Lopez was the first to show disrespect to her, she had every right to be indignant. Himena turned to Aaron and said that she hurt people not with a sword but with words. Himena said she had seen words like that drive people to their deaths. She was sure Lopez thought he had made a valid criticism, and if she had responded in the same tone, it would have made the situation worse. Of course, Himena was angry, but now she didn't want to quarrel with the victim. She wanted to sort everything out first and then sort things out, although it seemed to her that everything had become much worse now. After all, it was she who started it all, and now her already strange rumors had become even more ridiculous. Aaron took Himena's hand and said that he knew she was not at all like everyone said. Aaron admitted that he had previously believed all these rumors and looked at her with prejudice. But now, having met Himena personally, he realized that it was all a lie. He was sure that people would eventually understand what Himena really was like. Aaron told Himena that she could rely on him if she ever felt distressed by the rumors. Himena was incredibly pleased to hear such words. She thanked Aaron for such kind words, but Himena felt she had to handle it herself. Himena told Aaron that she didn't want to cause him any trouble. Himena turned to Aaron and said that it was time for them to go back. Aaron suddenly told Himena that he wouldn't mind even if she caused him problems. Himena returned to the mansion. Marie immediately rushed to her. Something happened in the estate. Mari handed Himena a paper and said that she had received an invitation from the Imperial Palace. Himena didn't understand why Diego was writing to her after what she had done. Diego wrote to Himena asking how she was doing. He said that after such an intimate tea party he could not forget her, so he sent an invitation again. He asked her to come to the palace and have one more special meeting with him that could bring them closer together. Diego wanted to see her as soon as possible. At the bottom of the letter, Diego wrote the sender's name, "Your Diego." Himena was furious at the prince's behavior. Marie didn't understand what they should do now because it seemed like the plan hadn't worked. Himena was angry. All these rumors only spread more and more, but to no avail, everything turned out the opposite. Himena was already thinking about simply having a head-on collision with the prince, but Marie thought that was too much. Mari asked Himena if she would accept the invitation. Himena said that she had no other choice. After all, if she refuses, there will be trouble. After that incident, the old man was already bedridden. But Himena still found it strange. Other men would have run away from something like this long ago. Himena didn't understand anything. She was already thinking that the prince might be an ordinary pervert who wanted to be treated more harshly. Himena didn't understand how she could get rid of him and at the same time cover up all these stupid rumors about her. Suddenly, Himena remembered something. She remembered that she still had Marquis Killian. If you think about it, this whole mess started because of Himena's obsessive attention to him. Himena wondered what would happen if she and Killian suddenly started getting along well. In that case, the prince himself could retreat, and this author could stop writing his dirty novels. Himena decided to send an invitation to Killian. She wanted to go to the palace with him. But Himena was worried about Marie because she didn't like her meetings with Killian at all. And Royce, Himena thought that if he was there, Killian would recognize him. Himena decided to ask Marie for something. She wanted Marie to go to Anatole with Royce. But Marie didn't understand why. Himena said that she was worried about her father and wanted them to check on him. She also wanted them to pass something on to him from her, a promise that the prince's offer would definitely be rescinded. Soon, Himena arrived at the Imperial Palace and stood in front of Diego's room. Himena couldn't believe she was here again. Himena was shocked when she saw Diego. She looked at him and saw that his shirt was unbuttoned, revealing his bare torso. Diego told Himena that he was glad to see her and had been waiting for her for a long time. Himena was surprised and thanked the prince for the invitation. Diego approached Himena and said that for some reason she was different today. She seemed especially charming to him. Himena didn't understand if he had gone crazy. She thanked the prince. Himena didn't understand what was happening to him. Diego realized that everything was as he thought as soon as he appeared, and Himena was speechless. Diego realized that Himena was attracted to persistent men, and he began to tell Himena what she had shown him then. He said that these adult games were quite original, and since they are already going to become husband and wife, as Himena said, It would have been nice to know each other's tastes beforehand. Jimena was in a complete stupor. Diego couldn't understand if Jimena thought he would get scared and call off the engagement over some trifle. Diego did not understand where was that determined, courageous Jimena who was in front of him that day. Diego asked Jimena what interesting game they would play today. Jimena suddenly asked Diego if it wasn't he who invited her to the palace. She believed that he should have prepared for their meeting and thought everything through. Jimena asked Diego what he wanted to play with her today. Diego took Jimena's hand. He brought it to his lips and bit it. Jimena howled in pain and surprise. She didn't understand what he was doing. Diego just laughed and told Jimena that she shouldn't react so strongly to it. Diego told Jimena that he had prepared a little game for her. Jimena was confused. Diego told Jimena that last time she taught him a little game, and now it was his turn to show her some entertainment. He thought it would be nice if the couple had a common hobby. Training ground, Imperial Palace. Jimena and Diego fought with swords. Jimena had a hard time parrying Diego's blows. Diego noticed that Jimena was moving well. He thought she was just playing knights. It turns out she learned something, but Diego thought it was still not enough. Jimena was tired. It was already hard for her. She was soon defeated, dropping her sword and falling to the ground. Diego didn't understand whether Jimena had dared to go against him and still hoped to win. Diego asked Jimena if she was okay, but she was very angry with him. Diego said he realized he had pushed her too hard. Diego laughed and asked Jimena for forgiveness, which made her even more angry. She sighed and told Diego that everything was fine and she was okay. Diego noticed that Jimena was thoughtful during the fight. He approached her and asked if she was already tired. Diego suggested to Jimena that they stop there if she couldn't continue. But Jimena didn't want to finish. She told Diego that she was just momentarily distracted by his skill. She told Diego that he was really great today. Diego was glad that Jimena was finally beginning to see his true nature. Diego felt like they were truly made for each other. Jimena suddenly stood up and swung her sword. She almost hit Diego in the neck and he froze in surprise. Jimena asked him to show her again what made him so charming. Diego smiled and said that he would do it with great pleasure. Jimena put away her sword and asked Diego if they would continue their game. Diego took the sword, stood up, and told Jimena that of course they would continue. They started fighting again. Diego noticed that this was different from what it was before. There was real passion in her blade, but there was no vulnerability, not even the slightest. Soon Diego's blade flew in the other direction. Diego was shocked, and Jimena told him that he was indeed worried about something. And during the battle, this was especially noticeable. Jimena asked him to tell her if he would promise to break off the engagement if she won. As a child, the girl had a wonderful, loving family. But one day, returning home, she saw a terrible picture. The corpses of her parents lay before her, and the house was in disarray. They said that robbers had broken into their house. The man felt terribly sorry for the family and took the girl in solidarity as a fellow police officer. From that moment on, the girl promised herself to become a police officer. Her house collapsed overnight. She wanted to protect other people from the same thing. She saw a newly married couple arguing in front of her. She wanted to make peace with them and told them about her parents and how they built their marriage, but they decided that she simply didn't understand anything about it. After all, now no one marries for love, and all of this was just one big business. Jimena continued to fight hard against Diego. Soon Diego became tired, let his guard down and fell to the ground. Jimena walked up to him and pointed the blade of her sword at his neck. She smiled and said that victory was hers. Jimena thanked the prince and said that the duel had been enjoyable. She gave him her hand and asked him to stand up. Diego was angry. Jimena told him that she knew why he proposed to her. Despite all the dirty rumors and speculation surrounding her, he still insisted on this wedding. Jimena was sure that all this was because of her father's wealth and army. She had no brothers to inherit the name, meaning that by marrying her, Diego would gain the power and resources of her house, and all the wealth of the duchy would end up in the hands of the imperial family. Diego stood up and asked Jimena if it wasn't obvious. After all, even marriages between lower nobles were concluded out of convenience. Diego asked Jimena if this alliance was only beneficial for him. She would become a princess eventually. He didn't see what was wrong with that. Himena said that perhaps for him and for her father it all made sense, but at least she wanted to be married to someone she truly loved. Diego was surprised by this word, love. He didn't expect to hear this from the lips of the daughter of a great house. He did not understand how one could talk about love in the face of a dynastic marriage on which the future of the family depended. Himena said she realized how naive that sounded. But when you grow up in a family where your parents truly love each other, these are the kind of dreams that inevitably appear. She asked Diego to withdraw the offer, as he had promised. She really hoped that Diego would find someone who would suit him better than her. Diego asked Himena if the real reason for her refusal was that she simply didn't love him. Himena said that everything is so. Diego said that then it wasn't such a big problem. Himena didn't love him now, but that didn't mean she would never love him. Himena didn't understand whether he really thought that such love could come out of nowhere. Diego thought that this was true. Tomorrow she could discover something new in him and everything could change. But since he had given his word, he decided to abandon the engagement for now. After all, who knows, everything could have changed someday, and she herself might want him to propose to her again. Himena thought that this man was simply hopeless. She told him that she could never be a support for him. She asked Diego to think carefully, because somewhere there was someone who would become a real support for him. But Diego said again that a person's feelings can change at the most unexpected moment. And suddenly, he began to take an interest in her. Whale informed Killian that he had received an invitation from the ducal house. Killian was surprised because now all the fuss was around the prince and his proposal. Whaley said that Himena was in the palace and fought with Diego. There was a condition that the prince would take back the offer if Himena defeated him in a duel, and rumor has it that Lady Himena has won. Killian suddenly laughed, his mood lifted. Whale didn't understand what was happening. Killian was glad that Diego's plan to get the Sylvestre house fell apart. Killian believed that this was a reason to rejoice. Killian asked Whale to accept the invitation and prepare to leave. Whale was confused but promised Killian to prepare everything. Killian thought about a gift for Lady Himena. He couldn't find a suitable gift. Whale didn't understand why Killian was so excited. After all, the captain always preferred Hermes, and now he was talking about that very lady whom he couldn't stand. He didn't understand why Killian's face had the same expression as when they talked about Hermes. At this time, Himena was preparing herself for the meeting with Killian. Sophia brought her the dress she was supposed to wear in the evening. Himena was incredibly grateful to Sophia. It was already hard for her without Marie, so she also prepared such a luxurious dress for her. Himena asked Sophia if Marie and Royce had made it to the country mansion. Sophia said that they wrote that they had arrived safely and met the Duke, who looked tired. Himena was glad she could relax and think about her meeting with the Marquis. Killian was supposed to arrive for dinner. Himena thought he would be there just in time for the meal. In this case, Sophia suggested that Himena put away her jewelry and practice her social manners. After all, Himena wanted to impress Killian. Sophia said that Himena had perfected her table etiquette and it didn't need to be touched. Sophia suggested that she practice communicating with the Marquis alone. First of all, she taught Himena to sit so that the window was behind her. During the conversation, she should not look into the Marquis's eyes. She could even turn slightly to the side. She could also flip her hair over one shoulder to expose her neck. This way she could make the Marquis want to touch that graceful neck. He might have wanted to hug those soft shoulders. Wanting to hug Himena's thin waist, Himena felt awkward. After all, she had no intention of seducing Marquis Killian. Himena, for some reason, felt strange in my soul just from such a thought. Himena didn't feel that way with Prince Diego. Himena didn't understand what she was thinking about, but then she decided to relax. Soon Killian was already sitting in Himena's mansion. There he met Aaron. Killian immediately understood what kind of person stood in front of him. He remembered that it was with Aaron that Himena had fought at the Imperial Ball. Killian didn't understand what Aaron was doing here. Aaron walked up to Killian and introduced himself. Killian realized that he was not the only invited guest. Kyliana shook Aaron's hand and said he was glad to meet him. Killian asked Aaron why he had come to the mansion. Aaron hesitated. He couldn't just tell Killian about his and Jimena's affair without thinking. Aaron thought that Jimena still felt depressed about that meeting with the writer. Aaron became curious about why the Marquis came to Jimena. After all, everything was already over between them. Killian asked Aaron if he had received an invitation to dinner, but Aaron knew nothing about it at all. Aaron told Killian that he had come uninvited, simply to visit the Duchess. Aaron realized that Killian had been officially invited to the mansion. Aaron didn't understand whether Jimena really wanted to ask the Marquis for help because of that book. Killian didn't understand whether Aaron was still going to leave even after this conversation. He didn't understand if Aaron was really that close to Jimena. Then Jimena came out and asked the Marquis for forgiveness for the wait. She asked Killian if she was too late. Killian and Aaron were shocked by Jimena's outfit. Killian didn't understand if Jimena had always been this beautiful. Jimena didn't understand what Aaron was doing here. Aaron walked up to her and apologized for coming uninvited. Killian was unhappy. He realized that Jimena and Aaron were so close that they called each other by their first names. Aaron complimented Jimena on her outfit. Jimena thought that she really did look a bit unusual. Sometimes she was in a simple outfit, sometimes she was in a uniform. Now, in front of Killian and Aaron, it was even awkward to wear such a dress. Aaron had been restless since Jimena returned from the capital. He was worried that she might be too depressed. He apologized to Jimena for coming to her so unceremoniously. Jimena asked Aaron not to worry and said that everything was fine. Killian was furious. He decided to remind them that he was still standing nearby. Jimena apologized to Killian for keeping him waiting. Jimena extended her hand to him and said that they really hadn't seen each other for a long time. Killian agreed with Jimena because he couldn't tell her the truth, to say that he was worried about her too. Jimena thanked the Marquis for coming. Killian was confused. He didn't understand why Jimena always just shook his hand. Jimena asked Aaron to stay with her and the Marquis since he had already arrived. Soon Jimena, Killian, and Aaron had dinner. Aaron enjoyed the dinner and admitted that he could eat it every day. Jimena told Aaron that he could come to her every day because she was always glad to have guests. Killian decided to ask Jimena how long he and Aaron had known each other. Aaron decided to answer himself. He said that they first met and exchanged a few words at the Imperial Ball. Jimena confirmed Aaron's words and added that she had made a great tactlessness then. Aaron said that he too had made a mistake that day. He had believed the rumors surrounding the Duchess and had behaved extremely rudely. Killian said that from their behavior, he felt like they were much closer. Jimena didn't understand what was wrong with Killian and why there was so much venom in his words. Aaron told Killian that he had misunderstood and asked Jimena's permission to tell the truth. Aaron told Killian that he and Jimena were investigating a murder, and that evening on the balcony the conversation was also about murder. Killian became interested in this. Aaron told Killian more about the murder of the popular novelist. Killian remembered something about this, but he still didn't understand what Jimena had to do with it. Aaron said that the real key to solving this case was Jimena. He believed that without Jimena, they would never have solved the murder. After all, there was not a single witness, not a single lead, and this could have turned into a cold case. Aaron said the Duchess's reputation would have been very different if her involvement had been made public. Jimena said she didn't do it for reputation at all. This story came as a surprise to Killian. He didn't think the Duchess was interested in the safety of the capital. He couldn't even imagine that she found time for any investigations. Aaron reminded that the incident on the palace stairs had happened quite recently, and Jimena had already helped in the investigation. Killian fell silent. The dining room became quiet, and Jimena suddenly told Aaron that it shouldn't have been mentioned. Killian said he understood. He felt like Jimena had really changed since that incident. Jimena looked at Killian silently. She didn't know how to get out of this awkward situation. Aaron thanked Jimena for the wonderful dinner and told the Marquis that it was a pleasure to meet him. He apologized to Jimena for disrupting her evening. Before leaving, Aaron wanted to ask Jimena one question. He asked Jimena if she invited Killian to dinner because of the affair. Jimena didn't know what to answer. Aaron asked Jimena to ignore this stupid affair. He too was looking for a way to resolve the situation and wanted to try to convince the author. Aaron told Jimena that she shouldn't try to make a relationship with someone who was over. Jimena understood that Aaron was worried. She told him that the Marquis was not a heartless man. Jimena knew this because she had seen him up close when he served in the Knightly Order of the Scarlet Moon. Killian waited for Jimena. He didn't understand what he and Aaron were talking about for so long. Jimena told Aaron that she met with the Marquis for herself and it was her business and her choice. Aaron told Jimena that he understood everything and trusted her common sense, but he still asked Jimena to be careful. He reminded her of the incident when the servant encountered the maid who brought a basket containing a threatening letter. That maid later recalled another moment. She caught a glimpse of a scarlet moon pattern on the lining of his cloak. Jimena was perplexed. She understood that this could be a fabrication, since Mr. Andrea's reputation was not the best. Jimena believed this required further verification. Aaron said that they had already conducted an investigation into this night. He asked Jimena not to blindly trust the Marquis. Soon Jimena returned to the Marquis. Killian immediately asked Jimena what she had been talking to Aaron about for so long. Jimena said that she had simply wished him well. Killian found it strange that it took so long. Jimena didn't understand what was wrong with the Marquis. Today he seemed completely different to her. Killian had always been handsome, but today Jimena thought he looked like he was on the cover of a magazine, like a real model. Here Jimena realized that her head was full of completely different things and she needed to do as she was taught. She turned her head and opened her neck, then asked Killian how his dinner was. Killian said that he liked everything. Jimena did not understand why he was so cold. It was even difficult for her to speak. She didn't understand whether he was still angry with her. Killian asked Jimena to stop pretending that they were both comfortable. He was sure that Jimena had not invited him to her place just to have dinner. Jimena asked Killian if he had heard that Prince Diego had proposed to her. Killian said he heard. Jimena explained that everything was on hold for now, but the prince was not going to give up. Jimena said that there was a novel circulating in social circles that described a relationship very similar to theirs. The names had been changed, but they were both very recognizable in it, which put them both in an awkward position. Jimena understood that Killian still didn't like her, but if they didn't do anything, the writer would continue to use them in his books. Jimena proposed to Killian to enter into a fictitious love contract. To Jimena's surprise, Killian agreed. He said that he was not against concluding this agreement. Jimena was surprised. Killian didn't understand what was wrong with her, since she was the one who suggested it. Jimena didn't expect Killian to agree to this right away. She admitted that in case of refusal, she even thought about how to seduce him. Killian asked if he succumbed to her charms and they became a couple, would the author change the ending of the story? Jimena said that might be the case, but she warned Killian that they didn't have to do anything if he was uncomfortable. Killian asked Jimena if she wanted him to fall victim to her seduction that very night. Jimena was confused. She said that this was not at all what she wanted to say. Jimena did not understand what was happening to the Marquis. Here Killian approached Jimena and pressed her against the wall. Jimena had previously been sure that Killian hated her, but now she was beginning to doubt it. She didn't understand why he suddenly started behaving like this. Killian believed that since they were already trying to deceive everyone by saying that they were a couple, then they needed to do it properly. Jimena knew that if things continued like this, they would actually kiss. Killian already wanted to kiss Jimena, but then Jimena remembered Aaron's warning. She realized that this behavior was not typical of Killian. After all, he hated Jimena to the depths of his soul. Jimena would have understood everything if Hermes were standing in front of Killian now, but he didn't like her at all. Jimena believed that he couldn't behave like that. Jimena didn't understand if his actions had changed because he was a murderer. Jimena pushed Killian away from her sharply. Killian fell to the floor. She took out her knife and pressed it to Killian's face. She asked Killian if he was a psychopathic serial killer, but Killian didn't understand what nonsense Jimena was talking about. Jimena said that the real Killian would never have behaved like that. Killian agreed with Jimena. He felt like he really had gone crazy. Soon Killian was already over Jimena, asking her forgiveness for his insolence. Referring to the fact that he had too much wine, Killian told Jimena that he just wanted to help her. He didn't care what they said about him, but he told Himena that if the rumors continued, they would both be embarrassed in society. That's why he wanted to understand the real meaning of Himena's proposal. Killian knew it sounded like a pathetic excuse, but Himena saw the familiar Killian in front of her. Himena recalled that the author received threats 10 days after her arrival in Acticos. During this time, she was constantly with Killian. Himena realized that he couldn't be a criminal. Himena began to apologize to him, saying that she was simply confused. Himena didn't understand how she could even think such a thing about the Marquis. Himena said that she had mistaken him for a criminal. Killian remembered that Himena had said something similar before. Himena explained to Killian that his behavior was different from usual and she mistook him for a criminal. Killian glanced at Himena's dagger and asked if she always carried things like that with her. Himena told Killian that she had such a habit. Killian appreciated this habit because it allowed Himena to protect herself in any situation. Killian apologized to Himena again. Himena felt uneasy. She felt strange when Killian looked at her like that. At such moments, her heart seemed to go crazy. It beat faster and faster. Himena asked Killian if he was sure he would agree to a fake relationship. Killian agreed, because this way Himena could get rid of the annoying prince and restore her good name. In this way, the author could save the life of Himena's heroine. But Himena couldn't say anything about Killian's life. Himena realized that these conditions could only benefit her. She thought about offering Killian something in return. Himena immediately found an option, even though it was a bit stupid. She told Killian that there was a rumor going around about him that he preferred men. Killian realized that Himena was talking about Hermes, that is, about herself. Even though Killian knew everything, he couldn't tell her about it. He was afraid of losing Himena, and his answer from the very beginning was the same. Killian confirmed his consent to the fictitious relationship. Kingdom of Kadam, hotel near the capital. Today, Killian was going to meet the Duchess again, but without an escort, he just wanted to take a short walk around the center. Killian's assistant was worried about Killian's condition. He did not understand what had happened between him and the Duchess. From that day on, Killian walked around with a particularly satisfied look. He asked Killian about the lucrative offer that Himena had made him. Killian said that apparently the prince is not ready to simply give up on marriage. He was ready to endure even scandals, just so as not to lose the ducal family. Killian understood that the prince might be planning something more and perhaps had his sights set on the crown prince's throne. The assistant was surprised. He didn't understand if the Duchess knew about his intentions. Killian said that she knew to some extent. He couldn't understand it at all. The Duchess has changed a lot since the incident on the stairs. He asked Killian not to trust her too much anyway. Meanwhile, Himena had already gotten ready for the meeting. Sophia was delighted with Himena's appearance. Yesterday, Himena managed to charm the Marquis, and today Sophia dressed her up to make her look innocent. Himena felt that words about innocence did not suit her at all. Even though it was just a game, Himena was still very nervous. After all, this is their first date with Killian. Soon, Himena and Killian met. Killian asked Himena for permission to offer him his hand. Himena was at a loss. Cautiously, Himena extended her hand to Killian. Killian kissed Himena's hand and said that today was a wonderful day for a first date. There were a lot of people on the street. That's why the Marquis and Himena were immediately noticed. Himena felt awkward. Everyone was looking at them. Killian asked Himena if she had anything she particularly wanted today. Himena was at a loss again. She realized that she should at least go on dates sometimes. In her past life, she was always alone. Himena said she had never been asked out on a date before. Killian was surprised. He didn't expect to be Himena's first date partner. Killian felt awkward, so he suggested they just take a walk around the area first. Himena felt like she and Killian were both nervous. Himena wanted to think of something to relieve this awkwardness. She noticed something and pointed it out to Killian. Himena had never seen anything like it. She stuck to the display case. Killian noticed that Himena had changed her outfit and posture, but in reality she was no different from the Hermes who had been running around the market. The more Killian looked at Himena, the more she amazed him. Then someone said that the puppet show was starting. The children immediately ran to watch the performance. Himena invited Killian to watch it. Killian tried to explain something to her, but Himena didn't listen to him and simply pulled the marquee along with her. A girl flashed past Himena and Killian. Himena noticed a golden strand of hair sticking out from under her cloak. Himena immediately realized what kind of man walked past them. She thought it was Inez. Himena decided to stop the girl and rushed after her. Killian didn't understand where she was running. He tried to stop her. Golden hair was rare in these parts, so it could have been Inez. Himena lost sight of the girl. Then she felt a sharp pain. Looking down, she noticed that she had rubbed her leg. Himena didn't understand if she was just imagining things. She felt awkward because she had ruined the date. Himena realized that she had also lost Killian, but he suddenly appeared behind her. He told Himena that it was not good to do this. She left her companion on the first date and went alone. Himena apologized. She explained that she thought she saw someone she knew, so she ran after the girl. Killian noticed that Himena had taken off her shoes, so he picked her up. Killian asked Himena if she had caught up with the girl. Himena said that she had made a mistake. Himena asked Killian to let her go. She wanted to go herself, but Killian was against it. He told Himena that besides, this way the rumors would spread faster. Then someone told the Marquis that everything was ready. Himena was surprised. She didn't understand what it meant. Killian put Himena down and asked her to sit down. He handed Himena's shoes to the servant and asked him to look after them. Killian decided to go horseback riding with Himena. Killian hit the horse and it ran faster. Himena was scared. She didn't understand where they were going. Killian said that they had wandered around crowded places enough and now they could go somewhere quieter. Soon they arrived at some park. Himena was amazed by the beauty of this place. Himena thought that this was Killian's secret place, but the Marquis said that he rarely came here and it was unlikely that there was anyone else here. Himena said it was much better here than in the crowd. Killian was glad to hear this. He himself preferred silence. In such places it was easier for him to collect his thoughts. Himena admitted that she felt awkward because it was her fault that everything didn't go according to plan. After all, if it weren't for everything that was happening, Killian wouldn't be wasting his time on her today. Killian reminded Himena of her words, that everything between them was just a contract. He said that he also does not do charity work and set his own conditions. He reminded Himena that she still had 2 unused wishes left. Himena decided to clarify the duration of the contract. She wanted it to end when Killian fell in love with someone for real. Killian was surprised. Himena said that it was all just an act and that Killian could fall in love with someone. And if he continues to play the role, then it will be a deception in relation to that person. Killian agreed with Himena. Himena noticed that Killian was nervous and asked him not to worry. She said that everything would resolve itself after the monster-slaying tournament. Killian was surprised. He decided to ask Himena something. Killian thought that Himena no longer felt anything for him. He didn't understand why she had rejected the prince's proposal then. After all, this marriage would benefit the Himena family and it could be a good revenge on him. Himena didn't understand whether the Marquis really wanted her to take revenge on him. Killian said she misunderstood him. Himena said that the reason for refusing the prince was very simple. She said she just didn't love him. Besides, everyone is constantly telling her how to live, and if she becomes a princess, there will be even more such people. Killian thought Himena was a very strange woman. Himena agreed with him. Suddenly, Killian rushed towards Himena and hugged her. Himena was confused and very nervous. No matter how hard Killian tried, he was completely unable to predict Himena's actions.